a Mafia boss, found the runaway bride crying in the rain. Vivian sat on the cathedral steps in a destroyed wedding gown, mascara running down her face, while everyone inside shows business over her dignity. Then a black Rolls Royce stopped. Lucian Vale stepped out, draped his coat over her shoulders, and asked one question: "Who did this to you?" By morning, the wedding one's just cancelled. It had become the first shot in a war. The heavy Miami rain is coming down in sheets across the cathedral steps, and Vivian is sitting right there on the cold stone. Her $15,000 wedding gown is completely soaked and ruined. Just hours ago, she was getting ready to marry the golden boy of the city until she caught him in the act, sleeping with her own sister. Her family did not even care, demanding she just smile and secure their corporate merger. It is a harsh truth sometimes. The very people supposed to protect you are the ones holding the knife. Suddenly, a black Rolls Royce cuts through the storm. Lucian Vale, the most feared Mafia boss in the city, steps out. He drapes his heavy coat over her shaking shoulders and softly asks, "Who did this to her? Stick with me tonight, wherever you are listening from, because this story of revenge is just beginning." Let us rewind the clock 3 hours. Vivian is in her bridal suite, and the air is painfully heavy. Her bridesmaids refuse to even look her in the eye. You and I both know that when your gut tells you something's wrong, you have to listen. The second warning was her sister Cassidy faking an illness to leave early. Vivian goes looking for her, opening the coat room door only to watch her whole world shatter. Damien, her fiancé, has his hands tangled in Cassidy's hair, kissing her with desperate hunger. Vivian freezes in total shock. But the absolute worst part? Damien feels zero guilt. He straightens his tie, flashes a cruel smirk, and tells her to stop being dramatic. When someone shows you their true colors, believe them. She bolted out of that venue into the storm, and not a single person chased after her. So there she remains, anchored to those freezing marble steps while the restless Miami traffic roars past. A heavy car door slams shut nearby, but Vivian does not even flinch. She is trapped in her own pain, just trying to remember how to pull air into her lungs. Then, slow, deliberate footsteps approach her through the pouring rain. A low, commanding voice breaks the silence, warning her she is going to catch pneumonia. Vivian is totally exhausted by men telling her what to do, so she coldly snaps back that she is fine. The stranger calmly points out she is sitting in a literal thunderstorm, in a ruined gown. Sometimes hitting rock bottom is the only way to find a new path forward. She finally looks up to see a man who glasses straight out of the midnight shadows, a sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, and a flawless suit. The man staring down at her has endlessly dark, intense eyes that instinctively force her to sit up straight. It is Lucian Vale, the undisputed king of the Miami Underworld. He is ruthlessly brilliant, pulling the strings behind every shadow in the city. Even her arrogant ex Damien used to whisper his like he was handling active dynamite. It is a quiet reminder that a powerful reputation always enters the room long before you do. Lucian stands tall, holding his umbrella against the storm, and calmly states her name, Vivian Mercer. He says it like an undeniable fact. Vivian stares right back at the most dangerous man she has ever met and bitterly replies that she used to be. But she just traded that name for something worse, for a single, fleeting second. Something deeply unreadable flickers behind Lucian's cold, calculated eyes. The absolute titan of the underworld takes a step closer, tilting his umbrella to shield her. The chaotic roar of the storm instantly drops to a quiet whisper. He simply asks what happened, and Vivian just breaks She tells him everything, how her fiancé slept with her sister, and how her toxic parents still demanded she walk down the aisle. The saddest truth is that the people closest to your heart can cut the deepest, and walking away is your only survival tactic. She glares up at him through ruined mascara, demanding to know if her tragedy is entertaining. Lucian just clenches his jaw. He speaks the name Damien Torres like a loaded weapon. When she asks if they are friends, his rejection is ice cold. Without another word, he gently drapes his custom coat over her shivering shoulders, smelling of dark cedar and absolute danger. Lucian looks down and tells her she cannot stay out in this storm. Vivian just lets out a broken laugh and drops a brutal truth. She has nowhere left to run. Her existence, her apartment, her family connections, they are all completely owned and funded by her cheating ex. It is a painful lesson we all must learn. Never give someone total control over your survival, because independence is your only real armor. Lucian watches her silently. Then he slowly extends his hand and tells her that she does have a place to go tonight. The next thing she knows, Vivian is sinking into the leather seats of his silent Rolls-Royce. The tinted windows blur the city lights as she clutches his heavy coat. Every instinct is screaming at her to run, playing out every terrible scenario, but she is just too emotionally exhausted to care anymore. Sitting in the dark car, she can still hear Damien's cruel voice calling her dramatic. It is tragic how easily we let the wrong people rent space in our minds. You have to actively evict the voices that try to break your spirit. When she quietly asks where they are going, Lucian turns to her. For a moment, the cold mob boss fades, replaced by something almost human. He says he is taking her to his private estate on Biscayne Bay. Vivian stares at him, asking if the city's most ruthless kingpin makes a habit of adopting strays. Lucian allows a faint smirk to touch his lips. He softly replies that nobody ever touches what is his, and right now she is under his protection. She immediately snaps back that she does not belong to him. Lucian simply nods. He tells her she does not belong to anyone anymore, and that is exactly the point. The Vale estate is far more than just a home. It is a sprawling fortress of glass and dark steel sitting quietly on the water, heavily guarded and drenched in unimaginable wealth. Vivian steps through the towering front doors, her heels echoing against the cold marble floors. Everything around her screams money, but true power is never loud, is it? True power operates in total, unbothered silence. From the deep shadows of the hallway, a fierce older housekeeper named Mrs. Kwan suddenly appears. She takes one look at Vivian, shivering in a ruined wedding dress, and immediately begins scolding Lucian, demanding to know why he is bringing broken strays into his home. Lucian does not raise his voice. He just holds the older woman's gaze, introduces Vivian, and makes it absolutely clear to everyone that she is under his roof to stay. Mrs. Kwan guides Vivian Yin toward the guest wing, eager to get her out of the freezing fabric. As she climbs the stairs, Vivian feels the heavy weight of Lucian's stare. She stops, turns around, and softly asks why he is really doing this. Lucian remains standing in the shadows below. A flash of lightning illuminates his face as he delivers a cold truth. Damien Torres destroyed his family 3 years ago, and now the debt must be paid. Just like that, he vanishes into the dark. The reality crashes over Vivian like a physical blow. She is not some rescued guest. She is the perfect weapon for a Mafia vendetta. The golden rule of survival is simple. If a dangerous man hands you the keys to a beautiful cage, never let yourself get comfortable. You are still just a pawn on his board. Let us appreciate this quietly perfect detail. Mrs. Kwan leaves out a set of incredibly soft cashmere loungewear, and it fits Vivian perfectly. Our broken bride peels off the heavy, ruined wedding dress, letting it fall to the marble floor like the garbage it now is. She stands under the scalding water, scrubbing the mascara and the lingering memory of Damien's hands from her skin until the trembling finally stops. When she steps out, her phone is glowing with 17 missed calls. Her father demanding obedience, Cassidy leaving fake apologies, and her mother mourning the lost corporate merger. It takes serious courage to sever toxic bloodlines, but protecting your internal peace is mandatory. Vivian blocks every single number and drops the phone just as a gentle knock announces Mrs. Kwan with a warm meal. Vivian opens the door and Mrs. Kwan sweeps into the room with a steaming bowl of food. The older woman fixes her with a deeply maternal look and simply tells her to eat, noting that she finally looks human again. The warmth of the meal works its way into Vivian's hollow chest. Seeking a distraction, she softly asks how long the housekeeper has been with Lucian. Mrs. Kwan smiles. 23 years, back when the feared boss was just a foolish teenager. When Vivian asks if he is still foolish, the woman shakes her head. She says he is dangerous now, but deep down, a good man. Then she reveals the dark truth. Damien Torres orchestrated the ruin of Lucian's bloodline. If Lucian brought her into this house, he has a grand design. Let that be a lesson. Never cross a patient man who knows exactly how to play the long game. Mrs. Kwan looks Vivian dead in the eye and delivers a brutal reality check. She asks if Vivian is going to just let herself be used, or if she is finally going to use him right back. The housekeeper warns that Lucian never lets anyone inside his walls without a reason, hinting this revenge runs incredibly deep. Later that night, sleep is entirely impossible. Vivian lies in the dark while her mind tortures her with a looping reel of Cassidy's fake tears and Damien's cruel face. By 2 a.m, she gives up. She pulls on the cashmere and wanders out into the vast, silent mansion. She has no destination in mind. She just desperately needs to breathe, without the crushing expectations of her family suffocating her. Remember this, sometimes walking blindly into the dark unknown is the exact way to find out where you truly belong. She drifts onto the spacious terrace, the cool night air a stark contrast to the warmth inside. And there he is, Lucian, the Don himself, silhouetted against the dark expanse of Miami Bay. A crystal glass, glinting with a deep amber liquid, is clutched in his hand, embodying that classic, formidable Mafia boss presence. He doesn't even bother to turn, merely a subtle shift of his broad shoulders, a silent, almost predatory acknowledgement of her arrival, a clear welcome to my vibe without a single word. His voice, when it comes, is a low, raspy murmur, stripped bare of the formal polish he wears for the corporate world, as he asks if she found any sleep. Vivienne, ever defiant, fires back. Can you? They stand there together, 2 silent figures, watching the last tendrils of the storm dissipate, leaving behind the clean, electric scent of ozone in the air. Finally, Vivienne breaks the tense quiet, dropping the question that has weighed on her. You and I have seen this kind of heartbreak before. Vivienne feels the floor fall out from under her as the reality of this dark underworld sets in. Lucian speaks, his voice dropping into a lethal, quiet register that chills the room. Someone framed his brother Ethan with doctored shipping manifests, stripping away his contracts and his pride. By the time Ethan was cleared, Damien had already stolen his entire empire. But the real knife to the heart, Vivian learns her own father brokered that filthy deal. Her blood family sold her out, using her as a shiny pawn to legitimize a monster. The betrayal makes her physically sick. Listen closely to this. Your true worth is never defined by the toxic people who try to play you like a cheap chip in their own selfish games. You have to claim your own value. The night wraps around them like a heavy coat. Lucian lets his guard drop, his deep voice softening as he tells her that he knows, and that is exactly why she is here. The tension hums with something much deeper than revenge. Standing on that balcony above the glowing Miami skyline, Vivienne should be terrified. Instead, she feels a sudden, strange calm. She studies the hardened boss, asking if his plan is just to use her to ruin Damien. Lucian admits that was the strategy, until she walked into his life and changed everything. He vows she is safe with him forever. She lets out a bitter laugh at the dark irony of hiding with a mobster to escape her past. But think about it. Sometimes the scariest, darkest places end up being the exact sanctuary your weary soul needed all along. Vivienne runs the grim math in her head. Every road leads to ruin. Going back to the family that sold her out is impossible, and facing Damien is a death sentence. She confesses that surviving his toxic show made her forget how to even breathe. Lucian holds her gaze and simply tells her to stay. When she asks what his protection will cost, his jaw tightens. He says he does not collect debts from broken people. It is a blunt truth carrying a strange comfort. She stares at this dangerous, exhausted man who just offered her absolute safety without strings. He looks like a soldier who has forgotten peace. She whispers, asking why he really stopped for her. Remember this simple truth. The people who demand nothing from you are usually the ones capable of giving the most. Vivienne is done being collateral damage. Something fractures in her chest, shattering the lock she placed on her heart after Damien's betrayal. Instinctively, she reaches out, her trembling fingers grazing Lucian's hand. He goes rigid, unaccustomed to gentle touch, but does not pull away. She whispers a fragile thank you as distant thunder echoes across the horizon. In the wake of that storm, a wild spark flares in her soul. Hope. Taking that first terrifying step into the unknown is paralyzing, but it is the only way to rewrite your destiny. Dawn breaks sharp. She wakes to the aroma of rich coffee, wishing yesterday was just a dream. But the heavy cashmere sweater draped nearby proves otherwise. Reality sets in, cold and clear. She is waking up in the fortress of Lucian Vale. While Damien tears the city apart, Vivienne drifts into the cavernous kitchen. Mrs. Kwan works a chef knife with chilling precision, while a young man lounges nearby. He shares Lucian's sharp features, but carries a reckless edge. He mocks Vivienne, calling her the runaway bride. Mrs. Kwan scolds him, and his bitter facade finally cracks. He drops a heavy truth. He is Ethan, the brother Damien systematically destroyed. Vivienne's throat tightens, swearing she knew nothing about his quiet ruin. Ethan offers a hollow shrug. He explains that is Damien's style, burying people in the dark while the world looks away. But remember this simple rule. No matter how deep a snake buries its poison, the truth always crawls into the light. The tense silence shatters as Mrs. Kwan slides a warm plate across the counter, demanding she eat and gather her strength. Mrs. Kwan mutters about her frail frame, forcing her to sit. Ethan leans closer, demanding her true endgame. He asks if she wants revenge, a shield, or twisted romance, his tone bleeding venom. He needs to know if she will ruin his brother or get him killed. Vivienne whispers that she is merely trying to survive. Ethan's harsh armor finally cracks. He takes a sip of coffee and lays out the reality. Lucian is a terrifying man, but fiercely loyal. Under his watch, she is untouchable by anyone but Damien. A dangerous, jagged smile crosses Ethan's face. Lucian has waited 3 agonizing years to strike back, and Vivienne just handed him the perfect weapon. Always remember, your strongest allies are often just the broken people who share your worst enemies. Ethan walks out, leaving her breathless as Mrs. Kwan sighs into the heavy silence. Ethan has been drowning in rage since his rigged trial. Vivian understands that deep burn perfectly. Mrs. Kwan pauses her chopping, fixing Vivian with a sorrowful gaze, asking if she is truly prepared for the coming fallout. This is no longer a simple dispute. It is a mafia war. Damien will never let his prize escape, and her family will kill to protect their merger. As for Lucian, the beast has been chained for years, and she just snapped the leash. Heavy footsteps break the tension. Lucian strides in wearing a dark suit, radiating dangerous authority. His intense eyes pin her down. He asks if she rested, pouring a black coffee before delivering a crushing reality check. The time for hiding is over. Damien knows her exact location, and he is arriving today. You and I know the hard truth. Running from a toxic fire never extinguishes it. Eventually, you have to stand your ground and face the flames. Lucian leans against the counter, his tone cold and measured. He lays out two brutal paths. Option 1 is a ghost protocol. He smuggles her out of Miami by midnight with a new name and a quiet life. She vanishes forever. Option 2 means bathing the city in fire. She stays, acting as the ultimate bait to ruin Damien's reputation, sabotage his deals, and push him into a fatal mistake. And then, Lucian will personally bury the man who destroyed his family. The kitchen falls into a suffocating silence, the ticking clock sounding like a bomb timer. Vivian searches his dark eyes. This man saved her from the abyss, offering both escape and absolute vengeance. She whispers a warning that this war will cost lives. Lucian does not blink, stating that blood is the only way to end a monster. He demands she make her own choice. Listen to this. True power is born the second you refuse to let anyone else write your fate. Vivian presses her trembling palms against the cold marble, fighting her rising panic. Every instinct begs her to take the ghost protocol and vanish. But the memory of Damien's arrogant, mocking smirk flashes in her mind. That dark disrespect becomes the fuel lighting her soul on fire. She lifts her chin, locking onto Lucian's gaze. She vows she is done being a helpless pawn or a tragic trophy. If she stays, she is a main player in this war. Lucian's eyes ignite with terrifying respect, sealing the pact. When Damien is ashes, she walks away free. She pulls in a jagged breath and declares she is staying. The room goes dead quiet. Ethan steps into the doorway, stunned. Lucian's stoic mask shifts into a merciless, predatory grin. He whispers that she made the right choice, because Damien just pulled up to the front gates. Running away from your demons only delays the inevitable collision. You have to stand and fight. The sharp chime of the doorbell shatters the quiet, officially igniting Vivian's personal war. A violent ring echoes like a dark threat. Vivian's hand freezes, her coffee cup shaking. Through the frosted glass entryway, she sees the warped shadows of heavy enforcers. Damien brought his muscle. Across the room, Lucian remains perfectly still, his posture eerily relaxed. His deep voice cuts through her panic, telling her she does not have to face her abuser just yet. But Vivian is evolving. She sets the cup down. She knows choosing to hide today guarantees a lifetime of running. Ethan silently slides into the shadows, phone recording to build their trap. Lucian straightens the lapels of his dark suit with a terrifying calm. He commands her to stay right behind him. When the nightmares of your past finally bang on your door, you do not cower. You stand your ground with the absolute right back up. Let us set the scene. The room feels heavy, almost suffocating. Vivian finally cuts him off. If things go bad, they are already completely broken. She slowly smooths down her borrowed sweater, raising her chin like a shield, whispering that they should just get this over with. Lucian offers a ghost of a smile, walking to the door with the frozen confidence of a man who has nothing left to lose. He pulls it open. Standing there in the cold night air is Damien Torres, acting like he owns the very stars above. He brought 2 heavy enforcers just to flex his power. Damien stares at Vivian, his face twisting from shock to pure malice before forcing a sickeningly sweet smile. He says her name like she is a runaway child. You and I both know the lesson here. Never trust a warm, polished smile from the exact cold soul who just shattered your entire world. Picture this agonizing collision of past and present. Damien stands there demanding a private word with the woman he just destroyed, blind to his own absolute audacity. But watch Vivian in this exact moment. She refuses to shrink into the shadows. She steps right up beside Lucian, her presence a heavy reality check. Damien immediately tries to twist the truth, calling his betrayal with her sister a meaningless misunderstanding. Vivian cuts him off cold. Her voice is soft, but it slices through his empty lies like broken glass on a dark road. This is something we all need to remember tonight. Never let someone who broke you try to rewrite the memory of what you saw with your own crying eyes. Trust your pain. Damien is visibly sweating now, grinding his jaw as his own hired muscle watches him completely lose his grip on the narrative. Lucian tells the man to walk away, his voice dropping an octave, making it perfectly clear that Vivian stays right where she is. Damien loses his temper and tries to close the distance. But Lucian is already there, shifting with the terrifying, silent speed of a man who knows violence intimately. Damien starts losing his mind, screaming about their 2-year corporate merger as if money could patch a bleeding soul. That is when Vivian steps out of the shadows and delivers the final blow. She reminds him of the months he spent crawling around with her own sister. She stares into his eyes and finally takes her spirit back. The lesson is simple tonight. Never let a traitor make you feel guilty for walking away from their disrespect. Damien immediately plays the victim, accusing her of running to his enemy just to destroy him. Damien lets out a harsh, ugly laugh when she admits she just needed a safe harbor in the storm. He desperately tries to plant seeds of doubt, calling her foolish and claiming Lucian is merely using her in a twisted game of chess. But Vivian does not miss a beat. She stares him down and replies that being a pawn is still far better than being betrayed by the one who promised to protect her. The words land like a physical blow. Damien turns red, throwing wild threats about the $40 million deal hanging in the balance. He honestly believes cold cash can stitch together a shattered heart. Vivian simply tells him she is entirely done being traded like a piece of property. Take this to heart. Your inner peace will always be worth more than a hollow empire. Damien stares in absolute disbelief, finally issuing a desperate 24-hour warning before he breaks. Lucian offers a polite but absolutely deadly smile, quietly suggesting Damien leave the property before things get physically permanent. For a long, suffocating second, the air turns to ice. You can feel the violence waiting to erupt right there on the cold marble steps. But Damien realizes he is stepping into a grave he cannot climb out of. He backs away, hissing that the war has just begun, though Vivian coldly promises him it is already over. He speeds off into the night, kicking up gravel as he runs. The moment the heavy front door clicks shut, the illusion of strength completely shatters. Vivian collapses against the wall, her whole body trembling violently in the quiet dim light. It teaches us something profound. Real courage is never the absence of terror. It is standing your ground even when your soul is shaking. Lucian catches Vivian by the arm just before her knees hit the hardwood, his deep voice telling her to simply breathe. The adrenaline is fading, leaving pure exhaustion in its wake. As she looks up, the dim light catches a brutal scar along Lucian's jawline. It is a haunting reminder that this man lives in a world of actual bloodshed. Panic sets in as she worries that innocent people are about to bleed for her. But Lucian remains perfectly calm, revealing that he has already been fighting Damien in the shadows for 3 dark years. He offers her a safe flight out of town tonight, completely free of judgment. The lesson is quiet but absolute. True bravery is choosing to fight even when the escape door is left wide open. Vivian slowly stands tall, pulling away from his grip, and promises she is seeing this to the bitter end. The housekeeper gently guides a ghostly, pale Vivian onto the dark leather sofa, pressing a warm cup of tea into her trembling hands. Lucian stands by the massive window, looking out into the pitch-black night. His voice is heavy as he warns her that Damien is likely calling her father right now to organize a strike. They will freeze her money and drag her name through the mud. But Vivian simply closes her eyes. "Let them," she whispers into the quiet room. Lucian warns that the cartel will target him just to watch her break. Vivian slowly lowers her teacup, her eyes burning with a dark, new fire, and suggests they just make their enemies bleed first. Remember this truth. You only meet your strongest self when someone tries to burn your life to the ground. Ethan leans against the doorframe, laughing softly at the beautiful chaos. Ethan chuckles from the shadows, joking that they should keep Vivian around, since finding real loyalty in their brutal world is nearly impossible. He sinks into the couch, asking his brother if they are hiding tonight or going out for blood. Lucian pulls out his smartphone and makes a quiet call to his ghost contact, Marcus. He demands every hidden file on the Torres merger. We are talking offshore accounts, investor secrets, all the buried sins. He plans to turn their legacy into dust. Vivian sits frozen. He is not just fighting back, he is going for the killing stroke. Lucian explains that Damien's entire Underworld operation relies completely on this fake real estate merger. Keep this in mind when you face a tyrant. The taller they build their house of lies, the faster it crumbles when you kick the table. Vivian looks up from the dark leather couch and asks the one question that changes everything. Will this expose the fraud and completely destroy both of their bloodlines? Lucian stares right into her soul and softly says yes. Her hands finally stop shaking as she commands him to do it. Ethan breaks into a massive, predatory grin. Lucian steps closer, asking if she is truly prepared for the fallout. Vivian speaks with a voice made of pure winter frost. She explains that her own flesh and blood traded her away for corporate profits, so she is ready to strike the match herself. It is a heavy reminder. Never underestimate a broken heart that refuses to be a victim anymore. A terrifying spark ignites in Lucian's dark eyes. For the next 3 hours, the trio is locked in his study, unearthing the darkest sins of the city. Their phantom contact, Marcus, finally delivers the heavy files, and the evidence is absolutely devastating. Let us look at this together. Vivian flips through physical records while the brothers hunt through encrypted drives. Every single document is another nail driven into Damien's future. They find bribed officials, doctored reports, and hollow shell companies. But the knife twists deeper when Vivian sees her own father's signature plastered across the illegal contracts. They sold out their heritage in broad daylight. Lucian's voice is low as he explains the tragic reality of power. The elite hide their sins right in the open, relying on everyone else looking away. Ethan suddenly gasps, discovering that Damien has been stealing millions from his own father. The lesson is simple. Deep greed always leaves a trail, and karma keeps all the receipts. Lucian's eyes darken with cruel satisfaction as Ethan pulls up the hidden offshore transfers. The boss allows himself a slow, chilling smile. Greedy and stupid, he murmurs into the silent room. A truly fatal combination. Vivian asks what the final execution will look like. He does not just want to stop the business merger. Lucian plans to sever the blood tie between Damien and his ruthless cartel father, Antonio. Once the old man realizes his own son has been stealing from the family vault, the punishment will be biblical. Right as they are mapping out this beautiful tragedy, Vivian's phone lights up in the dark. Her mother is begging her to come home, claiming the family is terrified. Vivian stares at the screen and calmly deletes the thread. Here is the lesson we all have to learn. Sometimes, the only way to heal is to stop answering the door. The pain of betrayal never really rests, does it? Vivian's screen lights up again, this time with a message from Cassidy. The very sister who tore her life apart is now begging for a conversation in the middle of the night. Vivian clenches her jaw, hits block without a word, and whispers to the shadows that choices have consequences. You and I know how hard that is. Walking away from poisonous bloodlines is the hardest but most necessary step toward peace. Suddenly, an unknown number sends a chilling, violent threat. Lucian reads the screen, and the temperature in the room plummets. He smiles a terrifying, hollow smile, noting that a desperate enemy is a careless enemy. Within seconds, he dispatches an elite operative to become Vivian's permanent shadow. She argues, but Lucian knows the darkness of men who realize they are losing control, shuts her down before she can even finish the thought. His voice is an unyielding line. He looks her dead in the eye, stating that while she is under his roof, she is his responsibility. Normally, that kind of heavy possessiveness is a warning sign, but for Vivian, here in the shadows, it just makes her feel dangerously safe. Across the room, Ethan cracks jokes about the tension while tearing through enemy emails. Lucian tells him to follow the money. Take note of that simple truth tonight. No matter how clever the liar, bad deeds always leave a receipt if you dig deep enough. They spend hours in that dimly lit study, drinking black coffee, building a weaponized case to bring Damien down. Then the silence shatters. Her phone rings loudly. It is a live call from her father, the very architect of her misery. Lucian watches her with a knowing gaze and softly whispers that it is her move. Vivian hits the speaker button. Immediately, her father's freezing voice fills the heavy air of the study, demanding she face him in person. She shuts him down cold. Her father pivots to guilt, complaining bitterly about the embarrassment she is causing. By hiding out with Lucian, that is when Vivian finally shatters. She screams that he literally sold her to Damien like a piece of prime real estate. The old man tries to play the victim, claiming he was only securing her future. But she knows he was only securing his own wealth. Here is a truth you should hold on to. If someone only values you for how you elevate their status, they do not truly love you at all. Vivian paces the floor, vibrating with a pure, unfiltered rage. She drops the truth, screaming that he only cared about the corporate merger, ignoring that Damien was a monster. Her father demands she watch her tone. She refuses, stating plainly that Damien was sneaking around with her own sister for months. And the agonizing part? Her parents already knew. The dead silence confirms her nightmare. Her father dismisses the betrayal as a temporary phase, insisting the business was the priority. Vivian lets out a hollow laugh. She tells him to find another daughter to sell because she is officially done playing the pawn. He swears if she does not crawl back, she is cut off entirely. No trust fund, no family. Listen to the midnight radio, friends. When people show you they value money over your own breaking heart, believe them the very first time. That brutal threat was designed to destroy her spirit, but instead it breaks her chains. She locks eyes with Lucian, who is gripping his desk so hard his knuckles are bone white. She tells her father to keep his money, declaring she would rather be broke and breathing than wealthy and suffocating. He coldly warns she is making a massive mistake. She hits back with a line that cuts to the bone. Her only mistakes, she whispers, was believing he loved her more than his bank accounts. She ends the call, dropping the phone like it burns her skin. Ethan lets out a shocked whistle, noting she just burned the bridge to ash. Vivian bursts into a wild, breathless laugh. You and I have probably both stood on an edge like that. Taking back your independence is absolutely terrifying, but the fall is always worth the freedom. Vivian catches her breath, admitting she is not okay, but the freedom is worth the pain. Lucian steps close enough to prove he is her shield. He looks at her exhausted face and tells her she is not broke, because he holds more wealth than he could ever spend. He insists it is not charity, but a calculated strike. Her enemies expect her to crawl back when the money dries up, so they will starve those expectations. Vivian stares at this dangerous man, asking why he is doing this. His dark eyes soften as he admits that nobody reached out when he was drowning at rock bottom. He refuses to watch innocent people shattered by the same men who tore his own family apart. Remember this tonight. Helping others heal from the exact things that broke you is the highest possible form of strength. Before Vivienne can process his confession, Ethan's monitors chime like a funeral bell. He goes pale, announcing a catastrophic problem. He pulls up an intercepted email from Damien. Her ex just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow, dragging in the biggest investors. The true horror lies in the subject line. It claims they need to urgently discuss Vivienne's mental stability. Her blood turns to ice. Damien is planning to gaslight the corporation into believing she is having a breakdown to force the merger. Her own father will back the play as a concerned parent. It is pure psychological abuse. Ethan keeps scrolling, looking up with dread to warn them the trap is even deeper. Always read the fine print in life, folks, because the worst poison is often hidden in the quiet details. To the cruelty of this move, Damien is bringing a bribed psychiatrist to the boardroom to officially testify that Vivienne is emotionally disturbed. Lucian points out the dark endgame. Once that fake diagnosis enters the corporate record, her reputation is erased. Vivienne starts panicking, realizing these greedy men are trying to rewrite her existence just to secure a paycheck. Never let anyone else hold the pen to your life story, friends. She asks what they can do against that power. Lucian does not blink. He calls his fixer, demanding the most merciless corporate lawyer money can buy. He looks at Vivienne with a predatory smile and maps out the counterattack. They are going to march straight into that boardroom and drop a nuclear payload of hard evidence directly onto Damien's legacy. Payback time is here. Lucian steps into the role of a tactician. He tells her she will stand before those investors and lay their dirty secrets bare on the record. Vivienne is trembling, terrified they will destroy her. Lucian shuts that fear down. He promises they will fail because he will stand beside her with an army of legal power. He states that if they question her sanity for leaving a cheat, We will question theirs for expecting her to stay. That is the moment Vivian transcends. The panic melts into cold, concentrated rage. She tells Lucien she no longer just wants to expose Damien. She wants to leave his empire in ashes. Finding people who water your courage instead of your fear is everything in this life. Lucien warns her to rest for tomorrow. But as she turns, Ethan shouts her name in panic. What else is hiding in the dark? Stick with me here, because the pressure in this room is reaching a boiling point. Ethan stares at Vivian with a mix of deep respect and terror. He tells her she is the first person to ever draw a line against someone like Damien. It is a brave move, but Ethan is sweating, begging her not to let this mafia war swallow her soul. Vivian keeps a cool mask on, but the second she escapes to her room, reality caves in. She's no longer just fighting an ex. She is declaring war on her entire traumatic history. Tomorrow, she has to obliterate every single person who made her feel small. Meanwhile, Damien is twisting the narrative, and her father is losing his mind. Here is a hard truth to carry. Sometimes you literally have to burn down the quiet version of yourself to finally take the pen and write your own story. The bedroom door clicks open. It is Lucien. Vivian does not flinch, having already memorized the cadence of his footsteps. He asks quietly if the ghosts are keeping her awake. She confesses she is dreading the confrontation for tomorrow. Under the dim lights, Lucien looks less like an enforcer and more like a weary man who knows too much about pain. But he refuses to sugarcoat things. He warns that Damien will drag this fight into the gutter. They will hurl mud at her name and try to break her. Vivian wants comfort, but Lucien hands her a sword instead. He tells her to stop expecting monsters to play fair. Expect a war, he whispers, and swing back twice as hard. It is a vital lesson. You cannot expect toxic people to honor the rules of a fair fight just because your own heart is in the right place. Lucien looks her dead in the eyes. He tells her she is not walking into that room to apologize. She is walking in to burn their greedy world to the ground. You can see the dormant fire finally ignite in Vivian's chest, but she admits she is still terrified. Lucien whispers that fear is a gift because it keeps the blade sharp. The air shifts. They are standing dangerously close. Vivian finally asks that question hanging between them. Why does he actually care about her survival? Lucien goes completely silent. Slowly, his heavy guard falls. He confesses he knows exactly what it feels like to be treated as a weapon instead of a human being. You and I know how heavy that burden is. The people who have been broken the most brutally are almost always the ones who fight the hardest to protect someone else from feeling that exact same pain. Sit with me for a moment. We have to unpack this together. The air in the room grows completely still as Lucien finally lets his guard down. He is exhausted, sick to his soul of watching innocent people become collateral damage. When Vivian tries to carry the blame, whispering that she should have seen Damien's twisted red flags, Lucien cuts her off. His voice is a low, rough rumble. He tells her she was gaslit, trapped in the oldest trick an abuser has. Then he opens the vault of his own agony. 15 years of watching his father break his mother down, while the world blamed her. She died believing the lies. You can hear the raw trauma in his chest as he vows never to let that happen to someone he cares about. The lesson here is quiet but absolute. Never let a toxic soul rewrite your reality or convince you their darkness is your fault. Someone he cares about. The words hang in the heavy air between them, thick and electric. Vivian knows the absolute danger of this moment. Falling for a shadow-drenched mob boss who is dismantling her ex is a gamble with her life, But instead of stepping back into the cold, she leans into his warmth. Then, the fragile spell shatters. His phone vibrates, a sharp, angry buzz. Southgate breach. In a heartbeat, the tender man is gone, replaced by the lethal assassin. Moving like a ghost, he orders her to lock the door and let absolutely no one inside. Left to soon, the silence is deafening until her own phone lights up. An unknown number, an unknown flashing on the screen. A chilling reminder for all of us wandering through the night. When you finally cut a toxic person from your life, they will always claw at the windows to get back in. You have to lock the door and throw away the key. The messages on her screen are dripping with poison. Come back or else. We know exactly where you are hiding in the dark. Her hands tremble violently as the reality of Damien's obsession sets in. She reaches for the phone to call Lucien, but the house suddenly erupts. Wood splinters, glass shatters. Creeping toward the heavy door, she catches the chilling cadence of Lucien, speaking rapid, lethal Korean. It is the voice of a man who deals in death. Her phone rings. It is him. His tone is terrifyingly calm, even with the muffled sound of crushing violence echoing behind him. Damien sent a hit squad. Stay exactly where you are, he orders. Her survival instincts scream at her to curl up in the dark and disappear. But right here, in the cold hallway, something inside her permanently shifts. She is utterly exhausted from being the prey. Hiding might buy you a few quiet minutes, but eventually you have to stand up and face the monsters head-on. Her fingers close around the cold, heavy marble of a desk bookend. It is a desperate weapon, but she steps out of the room anyway. The hallway is completely swallowed by a suffocating silence. As she creeps toward the staircase, clutching that stone like a lifeline, the scene below unfolds like a twisted painting. 3 highly trained killers are on their knees. Lucien's loyal crew has them completely pinned down. Ethan is leaning in the corner, casually recording the demise, while even the housekeeper is tightly gripping a massive kitchen knife. And there, standing in the center of the wreckage, is Lucien. The steel of his weapon is pressed firmly against the lead killer's skull. The absolute calm in his posture is terrifying. He softly gives the man 5 seconds to give him one good reason not to pull the trigger. Remember this truth as you walk through life. Never underestimate the quiet people who have your back, because they will absolutely go to war for you. Let's pause and look at this piece by piece, shall we? This is a masterclass in absolute terrifying control. The lead thug, wearing a scarred smirk, tries to play tough. He demands Damien's stolen corporate files, throwing around threats of corporate espionage. But Lucien does not even flinch. He is an impenetrable wall of ice. He softly explains the files were legally obtained, and Damien can take his tears straight to the SEC. Then, the temperature in the room drops to freezing. Lucien leans in and breathes the thug's real name. He recites the man's tragic failures. A dishonorably discharged Marine doing dirty work for pennies. If he vanishes tonight into the gutter, not a single soul will come looking. The color completely drains from the killer's face. It is a chilling reminder. True power does not need to scream to be heard, and knowing your enemy's deepest secrets will always give you the upper hand. Do we understand each other? Lucien whispers the question, and the hardened killers trip over themselves nodding before being dragged out into the night. The heavy door slams shut. Lucien finally drops his arm, the lethal tension draining away, until his eyes catch a shadow on the stairs. It is Vivienne, knuckles white around a heavy piece of marble. Instantly, the ice-cold Mafia boss unravels. Raw, blinding panic rips through his chest. He closes the distance in 3 massive strides, his voice cracking as he yells at her for stepping into the crossfire. They could have used her to break him, but Vivian stands her ground, her eyes blazing. She refuses to cower in the dark while he catches a bullet for her. He stares at her, entirely disarmed, and whispers that she is completely insane. She fires right back that he is broken, too. Sometimes the most indestructible bonds are forged in the fire of risking absolutely everything for another soul. He tries to brush it off, muttering that his life is expendable anyway. But that word hits Vivian like a physical blow to the chest. She marches down the remaining steps, closing the fragile distance between them, and fiercely commands him never to say that again. Her voice trembles as she lists the people who rely on him, her words tangling in her throat as the adrenaline fades. The grand, shattered hallway goes entirely silent, just two broken people breathing the same air after a brush with death. Finally, she whispers the terrifying truth. He is not expendable to her. Lucian slowly raises his hand, his calloused fingers cupping her face, with a heartbreaking gentleness that ruins his ruthless facade. He warns her that stepping over this line is a fatal mistake. But Vivian does not care anymore. She leans into the warmth of his palm. Playing it safe might keep your heart beating, but taking a massive, terrifying leap is the only way to actually feel alive. The dam inside her finally breaks, and the raw emotion pours out. She tells him she has wasted her entire life shrinking herself, following empty rules, bleeding out for a toxic family, and playing perfect fiancé for a coward. She is completely done being a piece on someone else's board. When Lucian softly asks who she actually wants to be, she looks right into his damaged soul and tells him she wants to figure it out standing next to him. In that single moment, every iron wall around Lucian crumbles to dust. Vivian reaches up and kisses him before the fear can stop her. He freezes, paralyzed, before something feral and desperate snaps inside him. He pulls her flush against his chest, his fingers twisting into her hair. There is nothing sweet about it. It is chaotic, starving, and drenched in years of loneliness. Walking away from the toxic chains of your past is the only way to finally discover who is truly meant to hold you in the dark. Every ounce of the crushing loneliness and gnawing fear they have both carried for months detonates in that single embrace. Vivian holds onto his shirt like a drowning woman, feeling the hard, lethal muscle coiled in his shoulders. When they finally pull back just enough to breathe, Lucian rests his heavy forehead against hers. His voice is a broken rasp as he warns her that this crosses a boundary they can never uncross. And Vivian, she simply whispers that she wants the whole world to burn and change. Lucian tightens his desperate grip, warning her that Damien will see this as an absolute declaration of war, that getting this close to a monster like him could literally cost her her life. The heavy reality of his world washes over her, but instead of terror, a fierce exhilaration blooms in her chest. It is a profound truth. Sometimes the absolute most terrifying choices you make are the exact ones that finally set you free. She looks dead into the eyes of a killer and tells him she has never been more certain of anything in her tragic life. You and I can see the exact moment the heavy gears of survival turn in his head. He takes a breath, stepping back, and forces the cold, untouchable boss mask back onto his face. He gruffly orders her to get some sleep, reminding her of the corporate war they have to fight at 8 in the morning. Vivian shoots back a sharp, sarcastic remark, and, for a fleeting second, the ghost of a smile touches his lips. He gives one last warning never to charge armed assassins with a piece of office decor, which she waves off with a tired laugh. Back in her room, the adrenaline suddenly evaporates. She slides down the heavy oak door, her chest heaving as she realizes the massive storm she just invited in. Yet, she would do it again. Choosing your own chaotic, dangerous path will always be better than living quietly as a puppet for someone else. She did not make this irreversible choice because a cruel family approved. She did it because her own bruised intuition finally screamed yes. She crashes hard onto the mattress, falling into dead sleep. The next morning hits like a freight train. Mrs. Kwan, the fierce guardian of the house, shakes her awake, shoving a mug of black coffee into her hands with a strict 40-minute warning. The hot water of the shower washes away the smoke, the terror, and the lingering heat of that desperate midnight kiss. Stepping into the charcoal gray power suit laid out for her, Vivian stares at the mirror and sees a total stranger. The woman looking back is razor sharp, heavily armored, and completely untouchable. Downstairs, the dining room has become a literal war room, buzzing with hackers and corporate spies. It is a beautiful reminder for us all. Tying up your armor and showing up fiercely is exactly half the battle when you are preparing to destroy the people who broke you. Step into this room with me, just for a moment. Feel the chill in the air. Lucian stands there in a black suit, sharp enough to cut glass, looking ready for a funeral or a hostile takeover. When Vivian walks in, his face is stone, but his eyes remember the quiet vulnerability of last night. He introduces the legal team. Rachel Kim, the corporate shark. David Chen, the heavy hitter. Rachel looks Vivian dead in the eye with a predator's smile. She says they are going after Damien for defamation and fraud, handing his enemies the ammo they need. David promises to crush any whisper about Vivian being unstable. There is a simple truth here in the dark. When false friends try to tear you down, do not fight alone. Find those who will fiercely protect your name. David makes it clear the shady doctor has zero legal right to evaluate her. His words are useless gossip, but Vivian is still shaking. You can feel her terror, the crushing worry that these rumors will ruin her. That is when Marcus steps up. He is a gritty veteran who has seen the worst of people. He tells her to let them talk, because they will flip the script. They will expose Damien as a control freak who faked her mental crisis to cover up his own cheating. Vivian warns that things will get ugly. Lucian coldly reminds her it is already ugly, they are just taking it public now. Let me tell you something true about fear. Preparation completely destroys it. When you actively practice facing your worst nightmares, they lose their power over you. Rachel backs off, telling Vivian she is finally ready. This is not about being liked. She just needs to prove her sanity and show she is done with their garbage. The ultimate warning is simple. Do not let Damien bait her into a reaction. Vivian nods, though inside, her heart is screaming. Ethan pops in, announcing the rides are ready. Lucian instantly claims the seat next to Vivian with zero argument. They roll out into the Miami morning traffic in massive black SUVs, gliding through the streets like sharks smelling blood. In the quiet of the back seat, Vivian admits she is terrified. Lucian just smirks in the shadows. He tells her fear is good because it keeps you sharp. Remember this tonight. Never let anyone convince you that being scared is a weakness. Fear is just your mind telling you to stay awake and survive. Lucian warns her not to let the fear shrink her down. She has to walk into that boardroom as an equal, not a victim. When she panics about freezing up, Lucian casually reaches over and touches her hand. It is brief, but it deeply grounds her. He promises if she freezes, he will handle it, but he knows she is stronger than she thinks. They pull up to the glass headquarters. her ex's name plastered in arrogant letters. The tension is suffocating. They ride to the 15th floor, the exact place where lives are ruined with a simple handshake. Her lawyers flank her like an armored squad, while Lucian walks right behind her. This brings us to a quiet truth. True support does not mean fighting someone else's battles. It means standing right behind them, giving them the raw courage to fight for themselves. The receptionist drops her jaw when this squad rolls in. She tries to stall, saying they are not on the list, but Lucian gives her a quiet, deadly look that drains the color from her face. She folds instantly. The heavy boardroom doors are open. The predators are waiting. Vivian's tired dad, Damien's snake of a father, and the cheating ex himself. Damien stands there looking smug. But when he spots Vivian rolling deep with her legal team, his face completely shatters. You can see the shock, rage, and pure fear before he desperately hides it. He tries to act tough, claiming he is glad she came to her senses. Vivian stares right back, her voice like ice, saying she absolutely did not. Here is a lesson for the quiet ones. Never mistake someone's silence for weakness. Sometimes they are simply building an army to take you down. You and I know exactly what is about to happen in this room. Vivian drops her bag on the table with pure authority, telling her dad it is time to settle things. Damien's dad plays the fake nice card, claiming they are just worried about her mental state. A fatal mistake. Vivian cuts him off. She tells the room that catching her fiancé sleeping with her own sister is not a breakdown. It is a rational reaction to betrayal. Damien weakly claims she is overreacting. She corners him, demanding to know how many months he was creeping around. The boardroom goes dead silent. Damien panics, calling it a private matter. Vivian fires back that it stopped being private the second they questioned her sanity. Listen to me tonight. When toxic people try to silence you with shame, the loud, unapologetic truth is your best weapon. Vivian is not just burning the bridge, she is detonating the entire city. Her voice is ice cold as she pivots from heartbreak to business. She publicly lists off Damien's dirty secrets, the offshore accounts, the skimmed money, the environmental crimes. His dad whips his head around, shaken. Damien yells that she is lying, but Rachel is already sliding heavy folders of receipts across the table. Bank transfers, fake invoices, a paper trail straight to hell. Damien turns ghost white and accuses them of stealing, but Rachel simply smirks and threatens to call the feds for an audit. The temperature in the room plummets. Damien's dad opens a folder and goes from confused to homicidal in seconds. Here is a heavy lesson for everyone listening. If you are going to throw stones at someone, make sure you do not live in a fragile glass house yourself. Damien looks like a boy watching his life burn to the ground. He weakly mumbles it is not what it looks like. But his father's voice is freezing cold, stripped of all paternal warmth. He lays out how Damien embezzled from their own flesh and blood, committing fraud against the family. Damien pleads he was just expanding the business. The old man angrily shuts him down, calling it pure theft. The disgust in his father's eyes is absolute. Vivian quietly soaks in the karma. Then her own father tries to salvage the merger, insisting the marriage must happen for the investors. Vivian shoots him down, declaring the deal dead. He growls that she has no authority, so she pulls out the prenuptial agreement he forced upon her. By withdrawing her consent, the merger legally dies. The lesson here is poetic. The cage someone builds for you might just hold the key to your absolute freedom. Stay with me, because the finale in this room is devastating. Vivian points out the exact loophole, allowing her to back out 48 hours before the wedding. Rachel flashes a dark smile, and confirming it is ironclad. Vivian's dad turns purple, screaming she cannot ruin this. She coldly replies she already did, refusing to marry a cheat, just to bankroll his legacy. Across the table, Damien's father looks at his son with pure disgust, formally banishing him from the empire. Damien slinks out, slamming the door in total defeat. Seeing this circus, the investors snap their briefcases shut. One man stands up, stating he is pulling his money because this corruption is a joke. You and I know this deep down, but here is your reminder. You cannot build an empire on a foundation of lies. It only takes one honest person to knock it all down. The investors walk out, and the room feels like a graveyard. Left behind are Vivian, her squad, Lucian, her snake of a father, and Antonio Torres. Antonio actually looks at her with grim respect, warning her she just made some dangerous enemies. Vivian does not even blink. She casually replies that she already had enemies. She just finally stopped playing nice with them. Antonio tells her to watch her back, then leaves. Her father stares blankly at the table where $40 million just went up in smoke. He tries one last guilt trip, but Vivian serves him the freezing truth. He destroyed everything the second he tried to sell his own daughter. Look into the dark and hear this simple lesson. Never let anyone put a price tag on your worth, especially not your own blood. She grabs her bag, walking away with no money, but absolutely zero regrets. Vivian shoots her father one last glare. She tells him she is keeping her dignity, something he never possessed. She walks out like a force of nature. The elevator ride down is pure adrenaline. Rachel is grinning, laughing about Antonio's face when he realized his son was robbing him. David hypes up Vivian's ruthless delivery while Marcus quietly leaks the corruption files to the news. The internet is about to catch fire. Vivian leans against the cold elevator wall, dizzy, asking if it is always this insane. Rachel softly says it is only crazy when fighting people who truly deserve it. Listen closely tonight. Standing up for yourself is the scariest, most necessary thing you will ever do. Down in the dark garage, Jin is on high alert, scanning the concrete lot with professional paranoia, ready for whatever nightmare comes next. The all-clear sounds, and the crew scrambles into the idling cars. Vivian collapses into the heavy leather of the back seat, her shoulder pressing against Lucian. You and I both know that kind of total, bone-deep exhaustion. When he asks if she is all right, she just shakes her head, begging for a moment to breathe. Lucian's fingers wrap around hers, his grip a silent promise that he is not letting go. But the quiet shatters fast. Jin calls out from the driver's seat. They have a tail. A heavy black sedan mirrors every sudden turn they make through the slick Miami streets. Lucian goes completely rigid, recognizing the blatant intimidation tactic. They are not hiding. They want to be seen. It is a harsh reminder for all of us. Every time you push back against the dark always finds a way to push back twice as hard. Panic flashes in Vivian's eyes. She braces for an ambush, but Lucian's voice is a low, steady rumble, assuring her the street is too public. Still, she cannot miss the cold, heavy outline of the weapon in his waistband. He orders Jin to reroute, guiding them into the sterile glare of a hidden underground garage. They hold their breath until the stalking sedan finally rolls past. Upstairs, the safe house is a fortress of bulletproof glass. The crew wastes no time. Rachel, David, and Marcus tear into legal files, while Ethan paces the floorboards with frantic, nervous energy. Vivian just stares out at the glittering Miami skyline. She actually did it. She burned her whole arranged life to the ground. Sometimes you have to strike the match, a toxic past, just to clearly see your path forward. She killed the corrupt deal, but instead of relief, a sickening wave of dread washes over her. Across the room, Lucian answers his phone. The color drains from his face, leaving behind a terrifying, stone-cold mask. You and I have seen that look before, and it never brings good news. He hangs up, and the silence in the room turns suffocating. The sedan that followed them? It belongs to her father's private security firm. The man who raised her is hunting her down, and the nightmare only deepens. Marcus cracks open the offshore financials, uncovering a 3-year paper trail of massive scheduled payouts between her dad and Antonio Torres. The betrayal is total. The absolute worst monsters are usually the ones smiling at you across your own dinner table. Lucian turns the glowing screen toward her, and in one quiet second, her entire reality shatters. The numbers on the screen are completely staggering. $200,000 bleeding out of her father's accounts every single month. Rachel leans over the table, her voice razor sharp, calling it exactly what it is: pure, unadulterated blackmail. Vivian desperately tries to deny it, to find some other explanation, but the bank receipts tell a flawless story. Then, Lucian delivers the killing blow. Marcus traced the origin of the payments, and they started exactly 2 weeks after Ethan was arrested. Ethan stops chasing, his face freezing in pure shock. Vivian's father was the architect of his ruin all along. He handed Ethan to the wolves just to secure the contracts. Deception always leaves a trail in the dark, no matter how much money you spend trying to hide it. The truth hits Vivian so hard her legs surrender, and she has to grip the cold windowsill just to stay on her feet. She whispers that it has to be a mistake, her voice trembling. But deep down, the agonizing truth is already taking root. Every memory twists into something ugly. Her father forcing the toxic merger, his absolute panic when she tried to walk away. He was never protecting a family legacy. He was trying to buy his life back from the mob. Lucian reaches out, but Vivian physically recoils, overwhelmed by the rot in her own bloodline. She locks herself in the dark bathroom, collapsing onto the cold, unforgiving tile. We all reach that singular breaking point where the only way forward is to completely fall apart. She cries until the grief hollows her out, leaving nothing but a freezing, pure rage. Then, a soft knock echoes through the door. Lucian slides down the wall beside her. He does not offer empty sympathy. He just shares the heavy, bitter silence when every single word falls short. Let us sit with this moment together. Vivian looks up from the floor, completely hollowed out, whispering that her entire existence has been built on a lie. But Lucian is not going to let her drown in her father's guilt. His voice is a low, grounding force in the room. He tells her the fraud belongs to her father, not to her. The man ruined Ethan and tried to sell his own daughter to cover up his bloody footprints. Vivian hates herself for missing the signs, for sitting at those elegant dinners while monsters made deals in the shadows. But Lucian stops her, reminding her that expecting love from a parent does not make her a fool. It makes her human. He openly admits he wants to see her father's empire burn to ash, but he refuses to let the flames touch her. We cannot control the sins of the people who made us, but we can always choose how we rise above the wreckage. The hardened edges of Lucian's Mafia persona soften just for a second. It is a rare, vulnerable crack in the armor. He looks down at Vivian and tells her the truth. Anyone else would have folded under this nightmare long ago, but she is still standing, still fighting the current, crushed beneath the suffocating weight of her father's crimes. She looks him in the eye and asks what their next move is. Lucian does not miss a beat. He extends his hand, and promises they are going to drag every dirty secret into the unforgiving light. The blackmail, the betrayals, all of it. He vows that Antonio and her father will fall and asks if she wants to be there when the pillars collapse. She tells him she wants to watch them burn. But just as the vengeance takes shape, Rachel shatters the momentum. Antonio just hit Lucian with a brutal emergency restraining order. You have to appreciate the sheer, arrogant audacity of the move. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning in front of Judge Morrison, a man whose gavel has been bought and paid for by Antonio for years. Rachel paces the room, furious, calling it exactly what it is. A desperate stalling tactic meant to bury the evidence before it ever sees the light of day. David warns them that if the judge signs that order, breathing a single word of the conspiracy will put them all behind bars. Ethan is practically vibrating with helpless rage, but in the corner, Marcus lets out a quiet, dangerous laugh. He taps his screen, revealing a beautiful twist of fate. Chen, the brutal enforcer who attacked them earlier, is actually Antonio's own nephew, and Marcus has the emails. Years of digital footprints proving Chen is the architect, managing the entire blackmail operation from the shadows. Vivienne feels the room spinning, asking how they possibly uncovered such a massive, hidden gold mine. Marcus leans back, a satisfaction in his voice, explaining that Chen was breached 6 months ago. Every corrupt deal, every drop of blood, money has been sitting in a public data dump. It is entirely legal to access and absolutely bulletproof in a courtroom. Ethan is seeing red, demanding they use it to put Chen in a cage forever for daring to touch Vivienne. But Lucian simply stares at the screen, his mind working 10 steps ahead. He finally speaks, his voice a quiet command. They are not waiting for a courtroom. They are leaking every single file tonight, before Antonio can even assemble his lawyers. They are flooding the press and the federal agencies. Rachel shoots Vivienne a heavy, sorrowful look. Once this button is pressed, her father's life, as she knows it, is over. Rachel places a hand on Vivienne's arm, warning her that this is a total social and financial execution. There is no walking back from the ashes. But all Vivienne can see is her father's arrogant smile, his complete lack of remorse while he destroyed lives to protect his own wealth. Her expression hardens into stone. She does not hesitate. She tells Marcus to pull the trigger. The frantic clack of the keyboard fills the room as the data floods the servers of the FBI, the SEC, and every news desk in the city. Marcus hits enter. The room falls into a heavy, suspended silence. Somewhere in the city, Antonio and her father are about to watch their empires evaporate into thin air. Vivienne feels nothing but a terrifying, freezing calm, but Rachel shakes her head, warning that a cornered animal is the dangerous kind. Almost instantly, Lucian's secure phone erupts with a blaring alarm. Vivienne demands to know what the alarm means. Lucian's eyes are wild. The estate perimeter has been breached, and the only people left behind those walls are the housekeeper, Mrs. Kwan, and his brother, Ethan. The room explodes into pure, chaotic motion. Laptops are slammed shut, weapons are racked, and they sprint for the underground garage. Jin pushes the heavy SUV to its absolute limit, tearing blindly through the humid Miami night. In the passenger's seat, Lucian is barking ruthless, rapid-fire orders over the radio. Vivienne grips the leather door handle, her knuckles bone white, praying to a god she isn't sure is listening. The estate looks eerily quiet as the tires screech up the long, sweeping driveway. But as the headlights sweep across the entrance, the illusion breaks. The heavy mahogany front doors are splintered open, and fresh, dark blood stains the white marble steps. The vehicle is still rolling when Lucian throws his door open, sprinting up the steps with his weapon drawn, a man fully prepared to end lives. Rachel grabs Vivienne by the jacket, desperately ordering her to stay down, but then 2 deafening gunshots rip through the quiet night air. You and I know that waiting in the dark is its own kind of torture. Vivienne tears herself free and runs blindly toward the chaos. Inside, the grand foyer has been reduced to a violent ruin. Antique furniture is violently splintered, and shattered glass glitters like ice across the floor. In the center of the devastation sits Mrs. Kwan, blood streaming from a terrible gash on her forehead. But it is the boy in her arms that stops Vivienne's heart. It is Ethan. Lucian crashes to his knees, his hands frantically pressing into his brother's chest, his agonizing screams begging for an ambulance echoing off the walls. Mrs. Kwan is violently weeping, her voice broken as she explains the ambush. 3 men came for blood, and Ethan fought them back like a feral animal just to keep her safe, but they made him pay for it. Lucian, the untouchable, calculating shadow of the underworld, is completely unraveling. He shakes, his bloody hands gripping his brother, begging him not to close his eyes. Ethan is slipping into the dark, choking on his own blood, yet he still finds the strength to squeeze Lucian's hand. He whispers that it is not his fault. Lucian fractures entirely, sobbing as he commands his brother to just keep breathing. Red lights flood the room as paramedics rush in, forcing Lucian back into the shadows. Vivienne watches the man she loves turn into a hollow, shattered ghost. This is the tragic truth about vengeance. It always demands a devastating price, paid by the ones we love most. Picture the wreckage, you and I standing right in the middle of it. The smoke clears, and the silence that follows is deafening. Rachel is frantically working the phones. David is handling the police. But Vivienne is absolutely frozen in the ruins of this mansion. The cold, heavy truth settles in her chest. Her own father, Antonio, pulled the strings, and Ethan paid the bloody price. She wanders out to the driveway, finding Lucien staring hollowly into the dark, his hands stained red. When she tries to shoulder the blame, his eyes are lifeless. He tells her that his brother caught a bullet simply because he let his guard down to care. His legendary control breaks completely. Sometimes, the hardest lesson we ever learn is that love makes us vulnerable to the darkest kinds of pain. The air between them turns to pure ice. Lucian snaps, turning to her with venom, spitting out that he should have left her where he found her. Vivienne is entirely stunned, but he just lets out a bitter laugh. He throws the agonizing reality right at her feet. His brother is fighting for his life. In an ambulance, his sanctuary is ruined, and a target is painted on his family. All because she wanted to challenge Damien. She weeps that it is not fair, but he delivers the cruelest truth. Life is a war, and the innocent always bleed. He blames her for the curse now haunting his bloodline, his voice terrifyingly quiet. He tells her to leave, severing their tie forever. The lesson here is heavy. Revenge is a brutal debt, and the interest is always paid with the things you cherish most. His furious shout rings through the empty driveway, pulling Rachel from the house. Vivienne stares at the man who just risked everything for her, but now there is nothing in his eyes but absolute hatred. She breathes out a fragile apology, but he cuts her down instantly. Sorry does not bring back the dead. She drags her feet to the SUV, where Jin sits like a stone statue. Behind her, Lucian is barking ruthless orders in Korean. The man she fell for is gone, replaced by a cold boss seeking blood. Jin leaves her at a quiet hotel with a room key and drives away into the dark. Standing in front of the mirror in her ruined suit, Vivienne feels completely empty inside. It is a bitter pill to swallow Winning the battle often means walking away with a completely hollow heart. Let us pause and really look at this nightmare together. Vivian is drowning in the fact that her own flesh and blood ordered this execution, leaving Ethan to bleed out. As she sits in the dark, her phone lights up with a chilling message. No name, just a quiet threat demanding she come home before more bodies drop. Her father is treating human lives like disposable pawns. She knows the smart play is calling the police, but she refuses to let another friend catch a bullet. With trembling fingers, she types a single word. Where? The reply is instant. The Peninsula Hotel. 1 hour. Come alone. Life forces these heavy moments upon us. Sometimes, true devotion means walking completely alone into the blazing fire so the people you care about do not have to burn. Vivian slips into the shadows, shedding her blood-stained clothes for dark jeans and a heavy sweater. Looking at her reflection, she realizes the terrified runaway bride from 3 days ago is completely gone. She has tangled with the devil, burned his empire to the ground, and she is entirely done running away. She gets into a car, watching the neon lights of Miami bleed past her like a bad dream. Her phone vibrates. A message from Jin asking where she is going. Even drowning in his own grief, Lucian is still watching over her. She ignores the message entirely as the massive Peninsula Hotel rises before her like a monument to deity money. The lesson here is profound. Real strength is born the exact second you stop running away and decide to look your worst nightmares right in the eye. This is the kind of place where millions change hands in the shadows over expensive drinks. Vivian walks through the glowing lobby, projecting a fake armor of confidence, but her heart hammers when the private elevator requires a key. A man in a sharp suit steps up and silently swipes his card. One of her father's men. The long ride up feels like a slow march to the gallows. She closes her eyes, reminding herself she is doing this to shield the innocent. The doors glide open. Her father is waiting with a drink. Beside him stands Antonio Torres, and lurking in the corner is Marcus Chen, the monster who tried to take her. The truth about courage? It is never the absence of fear. Courage is being absolutely terrified, yet forcing yourself to step into the room anyway. Let us unpack this twisted dynamic together. Vivian holds a flawless poker face. Her father wears a smug grin, telling her she always ruins things. She fires right back, asking if he means leaving a cheating fiancé or exposing his dirty money. Richard looks older now, the weight of his crumbling empire pulling him down. Yet he tries to make her feel guilty for the ashes. But Vivian stands tall. Then Antonio steps forward, casually mentioning that Ethan suffered a tragic accident tonight. The unspoken threat hangs heavy in the room. Vivian directly accuses him of ordering the trigger pulled. Antonio just offers a cold smile, whispering that the city is harsh for people who make the wrong enemies. Remember this hard lesson. Toxic people will always twist the story, trying to make your boundaries look like the actual crime. Vivian practically spits poison at him, but Marcus steps forward, his voice dead and flat, reminding her she is only breathing because they have a deal to offer. She forces her racing heart to steady. Then her father drops the hammer. She must lie to the cameras, play the crazy daughter, blame Lucian for the violence, and allow the crooked merger to pass. If she dances on their strings, her friends live. They are perfectly weaponizing her bleeding heart. She screams that she will never return to Damien, but her father just laughs. He casually reveals they already destroyed Damien because the boy served his purpose. It is a chilling glimpse into their dark reality. In the ruthless pursuit of wealth and power, loyalty is a total illusion. The exact Second you stop being useful, you are thrown to the wolves. This room is suffocating with desperate damage control. Federal agents are circling, and the news is obsessed with their corruption. Her father tells her that since she struck the match, she has to put out the fire before it consumes them all. Vivian stares right through him, whispering that they deserve to burn. He counters with the ultimate manipulation, knowing her good heart will never allow another innocent person to suffer. And the tragedy is, he is completely right. Just as her spirit begins to break, her phone buzzes. A text from Jin. Ethan survived the surgery. He is still breathing. The intense wave of relief almost brings her to her knees. Here is a powerful truth. Predators will constantly try to use your kindness as a weapon against you, but you must never let them steal your beautiful humanity. Tucking the phone away, Vivian finds a new fire and completely flips the script. She announces she is walking out that door, marching straight to the authorities and locking them away. Antonio just laughs, reminding her the leaked files are merely circumstantial. Vivian fires back that Ethan will take the stand, but her father shatters that hope. He coldly points out no jury will trust a framed felon over men in custom suits. They plan to feed the media a story of a bitter, unstable bride having a total mental collapse after running away with a dangerous thug. You and I need to recognize this exact move. The harsh lesson of the night: when deeply toxic people get backed into a final corner, they do not apologize. They just rewrite history to make you look completely insane. Marcus steps heavily in front of the door, stealing the air from the room. Vivian's heart races. She forgot her father has been rigging this wicked game for decades. She pleads for a moment to think, but Antonio coldly starts a 60-second countdown. If she refuses, her loved ones will start dying. She gasps that they wouldn't dare. Antonio leans in, violently reminding her they just put a bullet in Ethan. They have zero limits. The luxurious room spins out of control. But right as she is about to break, her phone vibrates. A text from an unknown number glows on the screen. Do not trust them. They are recording you. Get out now. The ultimate lesson here: never underestimate a seasoned manipulator's trap, and always be ready to run when the walls close in. Vivian's blood turns to absolute ice. Her eyes scan the suite, landing on a tiny device hidden on the bookshelf. They are recording her. Her father barks, demanding she choose between her pride and her friends' lives. She stares at the man who taught her to ride a bike, realizing he is the exact same monster threatening her chosen family. A terrifying calm washes over her. She whispers she has an answer. He smirks, convinced he won. But Vivian tells him to go to hell and violently hurls her phone right through the window. The glass shatters with a deafening crash. In the chaos, she bolts. Marcus lunges, but she ducks, grabs a heavy lamp and bashes his knee, dropping him instantly. Stick with me here. The truest lesson is this: when the game is completely rigged against you, sometimes you just have to flip the board. Absolute chaos erupts the second the guards lunge. Vivian slams her trembling hand against the elevator button. The steel doors slide apart, and there he is. Jin stands perfectly still, weapon drawn, eyes cold as ice. He pulls her inside as two deafening warning shots rip through the air. As the doors hiss shut, Vivian gasps, begging to know how he found her. The heavy truth lands: Mr. Vale never let her walk alone. He ordered Jean to track her and hack a burner to expose the setup. They tear through the service corridors, bursting into a damp alley and piling into a waiting SUV. Tires scream against the asphalt as they vanish. Listen closely, because this teaches us a quiet truth. True loyalty is knowing exactly who will stand by your side when the snare finally pulls tight. Vivian sits in the SUV, her heart hammering like a trapped bird. She whispers to ask where they are going. Meeting her eyes in the mirror, Jin delivers an unshakable fact. Mr. Vale never abandons his people, even when his anger burns hot. They carve an erratic path through Miami, pulling into a concrete fortress of bulletproof glass. Inside, the air is heavy. Rachel shatters, demanding to know why Vivian met her toxic father alone. Vivian just wanted to spare everyone the pain. But David drops a hard reality. The enemies only set a trap to break her and steal everything. Listen to me on this one. When you try to carry the weight of the world entirely by yourself, you usually end up crushing the very people who are desperately trying to help you hold it. Vivian collapses onto the heavy leather sofa, completely hollowed out. She drops a crushing truth her enemies promised to slaughter everyone she loves, having already shot Ethan as a bloody warning. The legal team paces the room, slick with sweat. They call it witness intimidation, but without hard proof, the law means nothing. Vivian is shattered, admitting she just broke a window and ran. But from the shadows, Jin steps forward, quietly holding up a tiny black audio recorder. He secretly bugged her jacket before she ever walked into that room. Every vile threat streamed directly to a secure server, because Lucian never trusted her ruthless family. The lesson tonight is crystal clear. You must always build an ironclad safety net, because a desperate enemy will never play by the rules. Marcus smiles, declaring the audio pure, admissible gold. Rachel fires off orders to send the files to the FBI, while David scrambles for federal protection from Antonio. Suddenly, a dark voice cuts the celebration dead. Lucian steps into the room. He still wears his blood-stained shirt from the shootout, looking like an avenging ghost. He demands the tape. For 30 agonizing seconds, he listens to the men threaten the woman he loves. You can see the warmth drain from his eyes, replaced by a cold, terrifying rage. He pockets the drive, ordering his team to leak it to the press and the feds immediately. He wants them buried before the sun comes up. This proves a harsh reality about human nature. When toxic people push you to the absolute edge, sometimes your only valid response is leaving total scorched earth in your wake. Look at this piece by piece. The aftermath is agonizing. Rachel confirms the perimeter is locked down, leaving Lucian to focus entirely on Vivian. The man is vibrating with fury. His eyes are freezing cold, a lifetime away from the gentle soul who almost kissed her hours ago. He completely snaps, yelling at her for walking into Damien's trap alone. Vivian pleads that she just wanted to protect everyone and end the bitter drama, but Lucian refuses to soften. He reminds her these are not rational businessmen, they are literal killers who just shot his brother. The sheer terror of almost losing her is tearing his mind apart. It is a difficult lesson to swallow. You cannot save the world entirely by yourself, and trying to play the solo hero usually inflicts the deepest wounds on the people who truly love you. The entire room goes graveyard silent. Vivian asks about Ethan, and the fight instantly drains out of Lucian. He slumps, admitting his brother barely survived surgery. Vivian's voice shakes as she apologizes, but Lucian begs her to stop. His tone is raw, stripped of its armor. He confesses that watching her jump into danger is destroying his soul. But Vivian refuses to yield. She warns him to stop treating her like fragile glass. She survived a toxic father, she survived Damien, and she will survive this war. Lucian fires back, asking how many people have to bleed before she realizes she is not invincible. We really have to look at this together. Being a survivor makes you tough, but true strength is knowing when to drop your heavy armor and let the people who love you carry the weight. The tension in this room is absolute poison. Vivian stands her ground, staring this mafia boss directly in his dark eyes, demanding to know if she is his partner or just a liability. Lucian is circuiting, admitting with a broken voice that she is both, and it is a reality he cannot handle. The quiet lesson here: you cannot have it both ways in the violent underworld. But the intense drama halts when Marcus drops a staggering plot twist. He has been digging through Antonio's encrypted files, and the discovery changes everything. 3 years ago, right before the massive frame job, the boss wired $50,000 to the lead detective on the case, a man named Rodriguez. It is the absolute worst dirty cop scenario. The betrayal runs far deeper than blood. Stick with me, because the dark math is finally making perfect sense. $50,000 recorded as consulting fees. It is a complete joke. Rodriguez vanished to the Cayman Islands 6 months after the trial. He has been collecting monthly hush money from Antonio's secret stash ever since. The detective was completely bought and paid for, selling his badge to frame Ethan. The lesson here is profoundly simple. The truth always leaves a paper trail, no matter how deep you bury it. Rachel asks if they can force the dirty cop to confess, but Lucian shuts it down. Corrupt men with that much to lose never snitch. But here is the brilliant part: they do not even need his voice. Marcus projects all the hidden bank records and verified wire transfers directly onto the screen. They finally hold the ultimate weapon to destroy the crime boss. No dramatic confessions needed, just cold, hard, irrefutable receipts. They finally have it all. It feels like they finally have the proof to end this bloody war. But just when the nightmare seems over, Jin takes a call, and the color drains from his face. Security just intercepted 3 armed hitmen trying to breach Ethan's intensive care room. Even with the feds closing in, Antonio is desperately trying to silence his mistake. Listen closely to this harsh lesson. Never underestimate a cornered rat, because that is the exact moment they fight the dirtiest. Lucian goes entirely pale. You can literally see the cold vendetta hijacking his brain. He barks commands like a general, putting the hospital on lockdown and firing the evidence straight to the FBI. But he is not staying to watch the law work. He makes a dead sprint for the heavy exit doors, and Vivian's stomach drops as she realizes the terrifying truth. He is going completely rogue. Lucian turns around, his expression carved from ice. His voice is a terrifying growl as he tells Vivian he will permanently delete Antonio and her father from existence. Vivian screams that this is not justice, it is just raw, unfiltered revenge. But Lucian is entirely unhinged. They shot his brother, and he is completely done playing by the rules. The life lesson here is a bitter pill. Revenge is a dark poison that blurs the fragile line between the hero and the villain. He drops a chilling statement, declaring he does not need her permission to end these men. Before storming into the echoing parking garage, Vivian desperately chases him down, grabbing his rigid arm. She delivers one final, desperate warning. If he pulls that trigger tonight, he becomes the exact same soulless monster he has spent his entire life fighting against. Lucian stops and looks her directly in the eyes, dropping a heavy truth bomb. His voice is hollow as he admits he is already a killer, and a little romance will never wash the old blood off his hands. But Vivian fights back with pure fire. She insists his protective heart and his desperate urge to save his family make him a genuinely good man. Here is the lesson. Your dark past does not define you, but your very next choice just might. Lucian is deaf to her pleading. He rips his arm away, declaring that since their enemies crossed the line first, he is crossing it too. He throws open the door of the black SUV, ready to plunge into the violent night alone. But Vivian proves she is an absolute boss. She dives right into the passenger seat. He yells at her to get out, but she just stares him down with unbreakable resolve. She is riding shotgun straight into absolute chaos. The tension is boiling over. Vivian refuses to let Lucian burn his life down alone, aggressively ordering Jin to drive. Lucian shoots her a wild look. Caught between blind fury and a spark of desperate hope, he relents with one ironclad rule: she stays in the car. Yeah, right. They tear through the downtown streets, while Lucian spends the ride speaking rapid-fire Korean on his phone, orchestrating a massive strike. He drops the intel. Their targets are holed up in a suite wrapped in double security, fully expecting an attack. Vivian warns him it is an obvious trap, but Lucian just coldly checks the steel of his weapon. His enemies made a fatal mistake the second they targeted his bloodline. He has been plotting this exact revenge for 3 agonizing years. It leaves us with a powerful lesson. Never underestimate the terrifying patience of someone fighting to protect the people they truly love. Lucien is completely done playing the clean, corporate savior. He tried walking in the light, but the shadows of his world always crawl back. He leads Vivian down a barren hallway on the 15th floor. Unlocking a heavy steel door, he reveals a hidden command center bathed in the cold blue glow of surveillance monitors. The steel table is covered in high-grade weaponry. Vivian can barely breathe. Lucien stares at her, his voice an absolute void of emotion. "This is the real me," he tells her bluntly. "Still think I can be saved?" Before the shock even registers in her eyes, a piercing security siren shatters the quiet room. You and I both know the harsh truth here. The sharpest suits often hide the most dangerous secrets. Never assume you know someone just because they wear a polite smile in the daylight. Lucien turns to the monitors, his expression freezing into a mask of pure stone. The camera feeds show Antonio's hit squad rolling out in heavy black vehicles, making a direct line for the hospital where Ethan is recovering. But Lucien has been waiting in the dark for this exact moment. He grabs the radio, his voice calm and lethal, commanding his crew to box them in. He starts overriding the local police frequencies, cashing in every favor he has left. Vivian watches in disbelief as he orchestrates a masterclass in defense. Officers and private security suddenly swarm the intersection on screen, trapping the assassins before they can reach his brother. The lesson here is simple but profound. Your connections are your greatest shield in life. Build strong alliances when the waters are calm, because you will absolutely need them when the storm breaks. The camera feeds look like a scene ripped straight from a nightmare. Antonio's men try to break the trap, but they are entirely surrounded. The silent flash of gunfire illuminates the grainy monitors. Vivian forgets how to breathe, watching the chaos play out from miles away. 90 seconds later, the street goes perfectly still. Lucien answers a ringing phone, his tone hollow. "Good," he whispers. "Process them all. I want names by dawn." Antonio is likely sitting in his penthouse right now, realizing his shield is completely gone. Vivian feels the adrenaline spike, ready to march over and end this herself. But Lucien blocks the door, refusing to let her throw her life away on a fiery impulse. It is a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes holding your ground is the bravest move you can make. Do not let your own anger walk you blindfolded into a trap. Luciensa looks her dead in the eyes, stating the only way she can help is to just stay breathing while he burns his world to the ground. But Vivian refuses to be a bystander in her own tragedy. She demands to know his endgame. If he pulls the trigger on Antonio and her father, he will rot in a concrete box forever. Lucien softly admits that her safety is worth the price of his soul. It is a crushing confession. But Vivienne steps closer. She did not claw to claw her way out of the dark just to watch him drown in it alone. She demands to stand by his side as an equal. You can physically see the ice around his heart start to crack. She would rather fight the fire together than be kept safe in a cage. True loyalty is not about blind support. It is about grabbing the people you love by the shoulders and pulling them back from the edge. The silence between them feels thicker than the steel walls. Lucien reaches out, his rough fingers brushing her cheek. "You are out of your mind," he whispers, heavy with sorrow. She does not look away. "So are you," she replies. She pleads with him, explaining they have the witnesses and the power to end this the right way. "We do not need to shed more blood." Lucien's jaw tightens, the inner war tearing him apart. "You want me to let the men who hurt you keep breathing?" he asks. She tells him that real justice does not require a bullet, and right then, the beast in him yields. He picks up the phone and calls the federal agents, handing over the dirt he spent years collecting. "Listen to me on this one." Retaliation might offer a quick high, but the greatest victory is watching your demons fall while you walk away with a clean conscience. He drops the phone, but the tension only tightens. Desperate men do not wait around for the sirens. Vivienne walks straight to the table of heavy iron, grabbing a high-voltage stun weapon. Lucien warns her it carries 50,000 volts, asking if she is truly prepared to cross that line. She straps on a heavy bulletproof vest, answering him with cold silence. Suddenly, his lieutenant rushes in. The authorities are 10 minutes away, but someone is already running. The monitor shows a panicked figure sprinting through the alleys. It is Richard. Vivienne's own father is abandoning ship to save his skin. Lucien bolts for the door to cut him off. It is a bitter reality we all have to face eventually. You can sprint away from your worst mistakes for years, but the truth is always waiting for you at the back door. Tires scream against the concrete as their vehicle tears out of the garage. Vivienne stares at the glowing dot on the tracking screen, her heart hammering against her ribs. He is heading for the marina. Lucien says, his voice eerily calm. It is the classic exit strategy for men drowning in dirty money. They pull up to the docks just as the cold rain starts to fall. Vivienne sees him instantly. Her father is sprinting toward a luxury yacht, his face pale with terror. "Dad!" She screams into the damp night. He freezes. When he turns, his eyes are pleading, begging them to run before the syndicate comes for them all. But Lucien steps forward, blocking the path to the water. The sirens are already wailing in the distance. All the stolen money in the world might buy you a shiny boat, but it will never buy you an escape from your own shadow. Richard tries to spin one last desperate lie, insisting he is only running to draw the danger away from her. The gaslighting is almost pathetic. Vivienne is trembling from years of buried rage boiling over. She screams at him, her voice cracking over the crashing waves. She tells him he lost the right to call himself her father the night he traded her safety for a mobster's favor. Every terrible thing he did, she lays it all bare. She was never a daughter to him, just a chess piece in a dark game. Stripped of his tailored excuses, the polished businessman vanishes. What is left is just a hollow, trembling old man. "I am so sorry," he chokes out, tears mixing with the rain. "Listen closely to this. A bloodline is just biology. True family is built on protection and trust, and no one gets a free pass to hurt you just because they gave you your name." He keeps babbling, trying to explain how the corrupt merger was supposed to fix his terrible mistakes. He falls to his knees, swearing that Antonio threatened her life, but Vivian just lets out a broken laugh. Trading your child to a monster is not protection, it is the ultimate cowardice. Flashing red and blue lights suddenly paint the wet docks. The authorities have arrived. Panic flashes in Richard's eyes as he reaches into his coat. Lucien's weapon is drawn in a fraction of a second. "Do not shoot," Richard begs, pulling out a thick, sealed envelope. The bank routes, the ledgers, everything Antonio does not know I kept. He holds it out to Vivian like a fragile offering. "Burn him to the ground." We have all seen people wait until the final hour. The lesson is clear. It is never too late to offer a piece of redemption, even if you never get to sit in its shade. The tragic irony of this moment is heavy. Richard whispers for Lucien to protect his daughter, then turns and sprints toward the dark water. He is still choosing his own escape over the child standing right in front of him. Lucien shouts a warning into the rain, but Vivian just stands there, frozen on the wet pier. The federal agents are already swarming, their weapons sweeping the docks. Richard thinks he can make it to the water, but suddenly, the blinding searchlights of a Coast Guard vessel cut through the fog. A booming megaphone voice tells him it is over. They drag him back up the ramp in cold steel cuffs, his shoulders slumped in total defeat. You and I know this truth. You can try to outrun the ghost of your past, but the ocean of your mistakes will always wash you right back to shore. The bill for betrayal always comes due. As the agents march him up the slick planks, Richard stops near the daughter he broke. He offers one last fragile apology. You can see the agonizing conflict in Vivian's eyes, and she wants to scream, to demand back every year he traded away for syndicate money. But instead, she offers him the most painful punishment of all: absolute silence. The moment they lock him in the transport vehicle, the adrenaline leaves her bones. She crushes the envelope against her chest, struggling to breathe. Lucien steps close, his hand gently grounding her shoulder. The war is over. The men who hunted them are going away in chains. But standing in the cold rain, the victory feels like ashes. Here is the bitter reality of healing. Cutting the toxic roots out of your life will save you, but you still have to learn how to live with the empty space they leave behind. Instead of relief, Vivian feels entirely hollow. She and Lucien drive into the night, needing to see Ethan. The hospital is an absolute fortress, with armed guards and federal agents pacing the sterile halls. Ethan looks rough, hooked up to endless machines, but he's wide awake. Mrs. Squan is right there holding his hand. The second Ethan sees Lucien, he cracks a tired smile, joking about missing a whole war while napping. Lucien freezes, staring at his brother like a ghost, before gripping his shoulder with desperate gentleness. You and I know how crazy family can be. You never truly realize how much you value someone until the universe threatens to take them permanently. Cutting through the quiet, Ethan looks at Vivian and asks the golden question. Did they finally take the mob bosses down? Vivian drops the news. Her own father, Antonio, and Marcus are in federal holding. The frame job is exposed, and Ethan is getting his record wiped clean. When Lucien confirms his reputation is restored, Ethan breaks down. For 3 agonizing years, he was treated like a criminal, and now the nightmare is over. Vivian watches this raw emotional release, and something clicks in her heart. She lost her toxic father tonight, but gained a true chosen family. Here is a truth for the midnight hour. The family you build with trust is always stronger than the one you are born into. Blood does not automatically equal loyalty, but just as we settle into this quiet moment, The hospital intercom crackles. Code blue. Alarms start blaring like crazy, a harsh reminder that this mafia war is nowhere near finished. The tension spikes in a heartbeat. Medics sprint down the halls, screaming about a bomb threat. They are evacuating. Lucian shifts from a relieved brother to full Terminator mode instantly. He knows this is Antonio, making one last desperate play. The medical staff move fast, throwing Ethan onto a gurney and rushing for the stairs. The evacuation is pure chaos, a stampede of terrified people. Vivian sticks to Lucian like glue, but right at the stairwell, she spots him, Marcus Chen. The hitman is disguised as an orderly, holding a concealed gun, locked right on Ethan. If you ever think a cornered criminal will just give up, you are painfully wrong. Desperate people always take the most dangerous shots. Never drop your guard until the enemy is locked away. Vivian screams Lucian's name. Marcus raises his weapon, but Lucian is terrifyingly fast, shoving her behind him while drawing his own gun. People scatter. Then a gunshot echoes through the corridor. But here is the twist. It is not Marcus who fired. Jin materializes out of nowhere and blasts Marcus in the shoulder. The hitman drops and security swarms him. Lucian aims down at Marcus, his eyes absolute ice, but this Ico just laughs through the pain. He spits out that Antonio has secret contingencies, and this war will never end until someone is dead. The feds confirm the bomb was a fake designed to cause chaos. It is a harsh, midnight lesson. Dirty money buys endless loyalty, and powerful villains never surrender quietly. To fight a monster, you must be ready to cut off every single head. They drag Marcus away in handcuffs, leaving a trail of blood across the floor. Federal agents swarm the ICU, clearing rooms with military precision. That fake bomb was a desperate move to get a clean shot on Ethan, and it almost worked. Vivian leans against the cold wall, the sheer weight of this nightmare crushing her. Just 4 days ago, she was crying on church steps in a ruined wedding dress. Now she is dodging bullets in a federal crime scene. Life comes at you fast. You can never predict where your choices will drag you, which is why you must always learn to adapt. Meanwhile, Lucian is on his phone, barking at his people to beef up security. And Ethan? He is pale as a ghost on his gurney, still cracking dark. Sarcastic jokes about having the absolute worst week of his life. Ethan is wheeled into a secured room. He laughs softly, pointing out they eyed it to clip him twice in one day. Lucian snaps that it is not funny, but beneath that tone, you hear the raw, trembling relief. He is just thankful his brother is breathing. Once Ethan is settled, Lucian pulls Vivian aside. They duck into a sterile conference room. Lucian looks drained, a man running on absolute fumes. He drops the heavy truth. Antonio is playing his endgame. Marcus did not act alone. Someone handed him those credentials and fed him inside intel on Ethan's location. Listen closely. If you ever think cutting off a snake's head kills it immediately, you are tragically wrong. The venomous reflexes still kick. Antonio clearly has dangerous pawns operating on the outside. Antonio knows he is going down, so he is burning the house down, targeting witnesses. Vivian asks what they can do. Lucian's tone goes completely flat. He says they end it. No half measures, zero mercy. Vivian argues they should trust the law, but Lucian shuts that down. The system almost got his brother killed twice today. He is done playing nice. His plan? He is going straight into federal holding to handle her father personally. Vivian panics, telling him he cannot just walk into a prison. Lucian hits her with a bone-chilling, "Watch me." He is cashing in every dark favor he has. By morning, he gets 30 minutes alone with Antonio to finally settle the score. Here is the midnight lesson. When official rules fail to protect your loved ones, Sometimes you have to step into the dark and finish the fight yourself. Vivian is begging Lucian not to throw his redeemed life away. She asks how going to prison helps anyone. But Lucian is operating on pure shadow. He softly tells her it helps him sleep. Knowing his enemies are terrified, Vivian reminds him he left the Mafia 3 years ago to build a legitimate empire. He leans in and whispers that he is not angry. He is homicidal. Huge difference. He tells her to back off, claiming she has no right to dictate how he protects his blood. That rejection hits Vivian like a freight train. She crumbles, taking all the blame for bringing this war to his doorstep, convincing herself she is the villain. But hear this truth. Taking the blame when you are just trying to fix a broken situation is a toxic trap. You can never save people by making yourself the bad guy. Vivian is spiraling hard. She lists the casualties. Ethan caught a bullet, Mrs. Kwan got wrecked, and now Lucian is ready to toss his empire away. She is convinced she is the cause of these ruined lives. But then Lucian laughs. It is this dark, exhausted sound. He steps right up to her and drops a massive reality check. He tells her she is not the villain. She is the cure. Without her bravery, Antonio would still be running his dirty blackmail schemes, and his brother would still be ruined. Lucian gently grabs her face and reminds her that taking down the mob comes with a heavy price. Corruption always hits back hard. It is a simple life lesson. Doing the right thing is rarely pain-free. When you stand up to absolute monsters, they always fight dirty, but they survive the night, and that is a massive win. Vivian is breaking down, asking how they can keep fighting when the war never ends. Lucian's deep voice softens. He says you find something worth protecting, and you hold on to it until your hands bleed. When she asks what he is holding on to, he strokes her cheek and says, "You." But right when the tension peaks, his phone buzzes, shattering the quiet moment. It is Rachel. Lucian's face goes from exhausted lover to full Mafia boss in a split second. He hangs up and drops a massive bombshell. The big bad, Antonio, just tried to end his own life in his maximum security cell. Now they are rushing into this federal fortress, a concrete nightmare of despair. Here is your life lesson. Never let your guard down when the enemy is cornered. The moment you think the game is over, desperate players make their craziest move yet. Rachel meets them looking fried, confirming Antonio survived. The guards found him in time. Lucian immediately questions if it was real or a calculated stunt. The bedsheet knot was suspiciously weak. Vivian drops a terrifying theory. What if this attempt is just a wild distraction? Antonio has been the puppet master this whole time, pulling the strings on the blackmail and the shootings. He is too calculated to just tap out. He wants all federal eyes on him while his crew pulls off something shady elsewhere. Lucian instantly calls his muscle to check on Ethan, barking orders that they better not move, even if the building burns down. Here is a life lesson. When a master manipulator suddenly plays the victim, check your blind spots. Toxic people will fake a total breakdown just to set up their next trap. Welcome back to the late shift. You and I are going to unpack this story together, so let the piano chords set the mood. Vivian scans the board. Her father sits in a maximum security wing, while Marcus is chained to a hospital bed. Everyone is caged, but Luca knows the dark truth. Antonio isn't trying to end his own suffering. He is sending a chilling message to the shadows. Choosing silence over a deal, he is protecting the untouchable elites pulling the strings. If he dies, those billionaires walk away clean. Rachel drops the heavy reality check. Lawyers will drag this out for a decade. The truth we all need to hear. The scales of justice often tilt for gold. The real monsters hide quietly behind the man taking the fall. Look behind the curtain. The air in that room turns absolutely freezing. Luca's voice drops to a dead, hollow baritone as he demands 5 minutes alone with Antonio. Rachel pushes back, reminding him the man is a federal prisoner. But Luca is so far gone, the steel of a heavy piece already trembling in his pocket. The monster who just ordered the hit on his bloodline is the exact same guy who tucked him in during those stormy nights in the gutter. He spent 3 long years watching his family bleed. He is off the leash now, completely numb. It is a dangerous, heartbreaking edge. The lesson here is simple. Letting your trauma take the wheel might make you feel invincible, but blind revenge will effortlessly burn down the exact house you fought so hard to build. Luca tells them to get out of his way, pushing toward the door. Vivian scrambles after him, her hand gripping his arm like a lifeline. She drops the heavy truth: if he crosses this line, he becomes the exact monster everyone says he is, just another violent thug. But Luca slowly turns, his eyes completely empty. He softly tells her he was always that monster. She just closed her eyes to it. That cuts deep. He pulls away, slipping through the heavy security doors, leaving her shattered on the linoleum. She honestly believed her love could be a flashlight in his dark. But the hard lesson bleeding through this moment? You cannot simply love the shadows out of a soul that has already decided to make a home in the absolute dark. The tension here is thick enough to choke on. Vivian tells Rachel that justice is a luxury for people who haven't been dodging bullets all night. But then, a phone rings. Rachel goes pale. Vivian's father is folding. He is begging for an immunity deal, ready to tear up Antonio's entire underground empire. Names, ledgers, the whole bitter truth. Rachel is ecstatic. This is how they actually win the war, with ironclad paper instead of brass knuckles. But there is a massive problem. Luca does not know, and he is already walking the prison halls, seconds away from destroying his own life. Vivian screams at Rachel to pull him out. Here is the lesson we all need to remember. Patience is an absolute superpower. Rushing blindly into the fire of vengeance might destroy your victory. Stick with me, because this is where the pulse really starts pounding. Vivian bulldozes through the security, flashing a badge that gets her inside. She sprints down the corridor and finds Luca locked in a heavy standoff. The steel is literally trembling in his grip, torn between the ghost of a father figure and the monster Antonio became. She grabs him, breathless, and drops the bombshell. Her father is singing. He is turning state's evidence and bringing the whole corrupt Skyline crashing down. She looks Luca in the eyes and tells him they won, but only if he walks away right now. It is a heavy realization. The lesson here? Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't bloodying your own hands. It is stepping back and letting the system devour your enemies. Rachel reads off the hit list, and it is staggering. Richard's confession is about to sink 7 major players, including untouchable politicians. You can actually see the violent storm slowly drain out of Luca's posture. The adrenaline fades, leaving pure, hollow exhaustion. He won't get his hands on Antonio, but walking out of this building, a free man, is the ultimate triumph. Rachel promises Antonio is looking at decades behind concrete. The empire is over. Then, Vivian asks the hardest question of the night. What happens to the man who raised her? The answer is witness protection. He becomes a ghost. And the lesson hiding in this bittersweet moment: true victory is rarely about standing over the ruins of your enemy. Sometimes it is simply knowing when to finally walk away. They give her exactly 15 minutes, and the silence in that concrete room is suffocating. Richard, the man who bent the city to his will, looks fragile, chained to a steel table. When he tries to stand, a guard violently forces him down. Vivian stares at him, wondering if the father she loved was ever real. Richard breaks. He sobs, begging for forgiveness, admitting he threw Ethan to the wolves to save his own skin. But Vivian doesn't soften. She looks right through him and asks, the sharpest question is he actually sorry for the pain, or just terrified because he finally got caught? He whispers that it is probably both. The life lesson here is brutal. An apology lacking real accountability is just a desperate man trying to purchase his own peace. It gets so much darker, my friends. Richard confesses that Antonio had him completely trapped. Antonio held the evidence of Richard's dirty finances, using it to force him into framing Ethan. For 3 years, Richard paid quiet blood money while his daughter's life burned. Vivian, her voice trembling, asks if her engagement to Damien was ever real. Richard shatters the final illusion. He admits it was just a corporate merger trading his daughter to secure power. He even knew Damien was betraying her for 6 months and just looked the other way. The betrayal is staggering, and here is a lesson we cannot ignore. Secrets are the heaviest, most expensive debt you can ever take on. You might hide them for a while, but eventually they will totally bankrupt your soul. The tears are pouring down his face now. Richard fully admits he was drowning in the corruption, brainwashing himself into believing the empire mattered more than his own daughter. He finally owns his failure as a father. But Vivian, she has no anger left. She is completely hollowed out. She stares at this broken man and tells him in a dead, calm voice that she does not forgive him. She simply hopes burning down the network helps him sleep in whatever lonely place he ends up. She turns to leave, and Richard screams that he loves her. It echoes off the cinderblock walls, desperate and empty. The hardest lesson to learn in life is right here. Forgiveness is a personal choice, not a mandatory transaction. You owe absolutely nothing to the people who broke you. Vivian pauses at the heavy steel door. Without turning around, she delivers the final blow. She softly says she knows he loves her, and that is exactly why the betrayal hurts so deeply. Then she walks out, leaving him to his ghosts. The next 3 weeks are pure chaos. Richard sings to the feds, and the shockwaves tear the city apart. Antonio's empire crumbles under a mountain of federal charges. Marcus flips, and Damien is publicly destroyed by his own family. When Vivian's sister finally calls, Vivian lets it ring out into the void. She is done. And the life lesson shining through all this wreckage is beautiful in its own painful way. The truth will often come through and destroy everything you thought you knew, but a total collapse clears the ground for a real life. Let's take a breath, you and I, because the smoke is finally clearing. Vivian watches her phone ring and just lets it go. Luca hasn't pushed her, he's just been a quiet anchor. Ethan is bouncing back from his wounds, announcing he is heading to law school to fight for the ones the system tries to bury. Sitting around Mrs. Kwan's glowing dinner table, Vivian finally tastes what a real chosen family feels like. There is warmth here, but deep in her soul, a quiet voice tells her this isn't her final stop. She needs her own air to breathe. The lesson is profound. The people who stand by you in the darkest times are a true blessing. You cannot build your entire future inside the lingering shadow of your past trauma. Sometimes, to truly heal, you must walk forward alone. The dust finally settles, but the silence that follows a war is always the heaviest. It is 2 months after the arrests. Out on the terrace, bathed in pale moonlight, Vivian drops a truth that cuts deeper than any bullet. She has to leave Miami. She needs to find the woman she was before becoming a professional survivor, dodging underworld hitmen and suffocating in toxic family lines. Lucian does not hesitate. He offers to pack a bag to shadow her anywhere, but Vivian shakes her head. She tells him his empire needs rebuilding and Ethan needs him. Here is a simple truth you and I both know. You can survive the darkest wars with a loyal crew at your back, but the quiet path of figuring out who you truly are, that is a road you have to walk entirely alone. This is where the armor finally cracks. Vivian looks at him, eyes heavy with exhaustion, confessing her whole life has become nothing but a constant reaction to trauma. She just wants to breathe. The muscles in Lucian's jaw tighten as he forces out the question that terrifies him most. What if she never comes back? She holds her ground, explaining this choice isn't about him. It is about finally making a move not born from fear. Lucian gives her a sad, quiet smile, admitting she is right even as it breaks his heart. It reminds us of a bitter but beautiful lesson. True love is never about caging someone. It is about opening the door, even if their freedom takes them far away. For 2 weeks, they simply live, wandering Miami without the heavy weight of tomorrow. For 14 days, they vanish into the quiet corners of the city. They wander through empty galleries and share meals at a tiny Cuban joint where the owner treats Lucian like an old friend. Vivian teases him, saying that under the cold mob boss exterior there is an actual beating heart. On her final night, Lucian drives to a deserted beach. No neon, no noise, just the dark water and the biting wind. They sit in the heavy silence until Lucian confesses how much he will miss her, asking if she will return. Vivian refuses to lie. She wants to promise, but she will not. That is a hard truth we all must learn. Never make a promise you are not entirely sure you can keep. Empty words always leave a much deeper scar than an honest, painful silence. Lucian nods slowly, deciding that hoping will have to be enough. They sit until the sun bleeds over the horizon, two bruised survivors who pulled each other from the wreckage, finally remembering how to breathe. Then the bags are packed. Vivian prepares to vanish with enough cash for 6 months. The farewells are quiet but heavy. Ethan reminds her she will always have family here, and Mrs. Kwan presses warm food into her hands. Finally, it is just Lucian. He walks her to the airport gate. The world rushes past them, unaware of the quiet heartbreak. She thanks him for saving her, and he thanks her for her trust. Here is a truth you and I both know. Sometimes, the most brutal part of healing is having the terrifying courage to finally turn your back and walk away. Vivian lets out a soft laugh, admitting she trusted him when every instinct screamed not to. She turns to go, but Lucian catches her hand. He tells her that if she ever figures out who she is and wants something permanent, he will be waiting. The words catch in her throat. She walks through security, eyes locked forward, knowing a single glance back would break her resolve. 6 long months pass. The heavy Miami nights fade away. Now, Vivian is standing on a sun-drenched hillside in Tuscany. She survived Paris, poured coffee in Barcelona, and finally found peace in the Italian wine country. It brings us to a beautiful realization. Sometimes, you have to leave your old world behind and step blindly into the unknown just to discover who you are truly meant to be. Vivian rents a tiny cottage, throwing herself into the grueling work of the harvest. The dirt under her nails grounds her in a way the Mafia wars never did. Every night she writes, pouring her trauma onto paper until the scared girl from Miami becomes nothing but a ghost. Then, the quiet breaks. Her phone lights up. It is Lucian. They have kept it painfully casual for half a year, just checking for a pulse. She answers, trading jokes about how peaceful Italy is compared to the bloody streets they left behind. He says Ethan is doing great, and Mrs. Kwan is still a force of nature. But then, a heavy, familiar pause settles between them. The truth of the matter is simple. Real connections never fade with the miles. They just quietly wait in the dark for the exact right moment to pull you back. The Miami boss is on the line, admitting they miss her enough to want her back. But Vivian drops a sharp reality check. She is completely done with the shadows. No more running, no more surviving on the edge of a knife. She is finally just existing. Miles away, you can almost hear Lucian smiling through the phone. He knows this means she finally owns her own soul. She wants to be with the people who matter, but absolutely not in Miami. That city is buried under way too many ghosts. Looking out over the Tuscan hills, she realizes something profound. Stick with me, because you and I have probably learned this the hard way. Sometimes the ultimate power move isn't winning the war. It is having the absolute courage to walk away from the toxic environment that broke you in the first place. Instead of slipping into his dark world, she throws an unexpected curveball. She asks him how he feels about Tuscany. She wants to buy a crumbling vineyard, not as a front for dirty money, but to build something entirely real. She tells him what it feels like to wake up every morning with zero fear, without a target on her back. Lucian goes quiet, and then drops 5 words that shift their entire world. Send me the listing details. 3 months pass. Vivian is standing in her sun-baked courtyard when a massive black SUV slowly rolls up the dusty driveway. Here is the raw truth of it all. You cannot heal in the exact same soil that poisoned you. You must be brave enough to leave the ruins behind and plant your roots where the light actually reaches you. This property is a total disaster. Overgrown weeds, rusted machinery, and a farmhouse ready to collapse. But that is the magic of it, taking total wreckage and molding it into a masterpiece. The heavy doors swing open. Out steps Lucian, looking completely out of place in a sharp, tailored suit surrounded by farm dirt. Ethan hops out behind him, grinning wildly, while Mrs. Kwan is already calculating how to tear down the rotten walls. Lucian jokes that he left his sanity in Miami to invest in this patch of dirt, but his smile is entirely genuine. It proves a beautiful point. Starting over is always going to be a loud, chaotic mess, but when you are finally standing next to your true, chosen family, even a pile of broken bricks feels exactly like a palace. Lucian steps up to Vivian, trying desperately to play it cool. He looks at the ruined land and calls it a smart corporate expansion for a wine scheme. But Vivian calls his bluff, demanding the real reason he crossed an ocean. This is the moment that shifts everything. He looks into her eyes and admits that 6 months of silence forced him to figure out who he was without the violence, the endless grudges, and the blood-stained crown. He wants to build a quiet life right here, with her. Tears spill down Vivian's cheeks. We are witnessing pure evolution. Real strength has nothing to do with how many enemies you can bury or how much territory you command. True power is having the agonizing courage to finally drop your weapons, face your dark past, and actively choose peace. We watched this cold boss operate with ruthless precision. Now he is standing in a dirt pile, dropping most sincere lines. He tells her they need to build something clean. No ghosts, no revenge, just them. Vivian is crying, warning him that farming is brutal, and they are both too stubborn not to fight. But Lucian just pulls her into his chest. She looks at the dangerous man who handed her the keys to her own cage and says yes. He kisses her, and all that desperate energy from Miami is gone. It is replaced by something soft and real. Let's look at this closely, you and I, True love is never about chaotic, toxic battles. It is about doing the hard, quiet work when the dust settles, building a safe foundation together, brick by heavy brick. The romance of that kiss is shattered by hilarious reality. Mrs. Kwan yells from the porch that the roof is rotting, while Ethan is doubled over laughing. We jump forward 5 years. The transformation is staggering. That busted dirt is now an award-winning estate. The farmhouse keeps its rustic soul, but is fully modernized, hosting lively village festivals. Vivian spent her life being used as a pawn on someone else's ledger. But standing in the sunlight of her own land, she is reborn. She became the boss of her own life, surrounded by a family she chose. You and I have followed this story, and here is the final truth. You cannot control the toxic hand you were dealt, but you always possess that power to walk away, heal your deep wounds, and build your empire from the dirt up. The storm has passed, leaving a golden peace. Picture this. The Italian sunrise spills over the hills as Vivian inspects her vineyard. Her hands are weathered, her Italian fluent, and she is unrecognizable from the terrified girl on that Miami balcony. The quiet morning is shattered by beautiful chaos. Her fearless 4-year-old daughter, Elena, sprints through the dirt like a hurricane. Right behind her is Lucian. The once lethal crime boss is carrying their baby boy Marco on his shoulders, his deep laughter echoing across the fields. The ruthless monster is a devoted father. Elena babbles excitedly about Mrs. Kwan's famous pancakes. And Ethan? He flew out for a vacation and never booked a return flight. Look at the beauty of this. The brave souls you keep close during your darkest, violent moments will eventually become the family you always deserved to celebrate the light with. Ethan completely surrendered to the soft life. He met a fiery local woman named Sophia, fell in love, and traded his dark past for a Mediterranean lifestyle. He is now a part-time lawyer and full-time uncle. The family spills into the rustic kitchen, a scene of pure poetry. Mrs. Kwan and Sophia playfully argue over pancake batter in a dizzying blend of Korean and Italian. Ethan leans against the stone wall, sipping espresso, living for the domestic drama. He smirks, calling the family insane, and Vivian fires back, mocking his endless vacation. Laughter bounces off the beams. The children make a mess, and Vivian's chest aches with profound gratitude. Remember this as we close tonight. A perfect life is never silent or flawless. It is loud, wonderfully messy, and fiercely guarded by the exact chaotic people who love you unconditionally. Listeners, picture the scene. The morning coffee cools as Lucian and Vivian step onto their terrace. They traded the bleeding neon of Miami for the quiet Italian vineyards. Lucian studies her face, asking if the ghosts of their old life ever call to her. She does not even blink. She misses the fire it took to survive, but those blood-scoped Mafia games belong to the past. No regrets. Then, Lucian shatters the quiet. Antonio Torres is dead. The brutal kingpin, the monster who shot Ethan, died alone in a cold prison cell. His heart just gave out at 63. You and I know how unfair life can be, but here is a simple truth to carry with you tonight. Sometimes, you never even have to raise your fists. Time will quietly fight your hardest battles for you. Vivian asks him how he feels. You would expect a man like him to feel the rush of victory, right? But Lucian just lets out a heavy breath. He thought the news would bring a surge of vindication, but he just feels a deep, aching exhaustion. The darkest chapter is finally closed. Vivian looks at him and speaks the quiet truth. That is what growth feels like. Down below, their children toss pebbles into the stone fountain. Then, her voice drops. She tells him she never truly thanked him for stopping on those cathedral steps, for looking at her as a person, not just a pawn in a bloody game. He pulls her close, his lips resting against her forehead. True loyalty is not about dramatic rescues. It is about staying when a person has absolutely nothing left to offer you. Holds her gaze. He tells her she saved him too. He was drowning in his own vengeance, hollowed out by violence. She handed him a lifeline. It is a stunning confession from a former enforcer. Their daughter Elena calls out from the grass below, and they simply go to her, no more looking over their shoulders for assassins. Later that night, under a dark sky, Vivian asks a haunting question. Would the old version of her be happy right now? Lucian gives it to her straight. He says, the old Vivian would be terrified because letting your guard down is much harder than pulling a trigger. But she would also be incredibly proud. Remember this tonight. Anyone can survive a bitter conflict. It takes true courage to drop your weapons and build a beautiful home out of the rubble. He takes her hand, his deep voice cutting through the quiet air. He tells her that having faith in the goodness of the world takes far more strength than throwing a punch. Vivian squeezes his fingers, asking when he became such a philosopher. Probably when I bought a vineyard without knowing a thing about wine, he jokes. Down in the valley, slow church bells begin to chime. The sound pulls Vivienne back to a memory from 5 years ago. She sees herself shattered, sitting in the freezing rain in a ruined wedding dress after a brutal betrayal. She thought her life was ending on those cold stones. Instead, she fought her way out of the dark. Listen to me on this one. Your absolute darkest, most agonizing moment might just be the painful hard reset you need to finally reclaim your life. The stars blanket the Tuscan hills, glowing softly in the dark. A cool wind sweeps through the heavy grapevines. For the first time in her turbulent life, Vivian Mercer is not scanning the shadows. She is not mapping out a desperate revenge plot, and she is no longer running from the ghost of a ruthless boss. She is just existing. After all the blood, the vicious betrayals, and the warfare, she actually won. She finally knows the weight of true peace. It feels like coming home. Let me leave you with this final thought before we sign off tonight. You can spend your whole life chasing power or settling old scores, but the absolute greatest revenge you can get on the people who tried to destroy you. Finding your quiet peace and never letting them touch it. Another meaningful lesson in the story is that betrayal from family can be more painful than betrayal from an enemy. Damien's affair is devastating, but Cassidy's involvement makes the wound even deeper. A sister is supposed to be someone who protects, understands, and stands beside you. Shin. Instead, Cassidy becomes part of Vivien's humiliation. Even worse, Vivien's parents are willing to minimize the betrayal because the marriage has business value. Her father focuses on the merger. Her mother pressures her to return. The family treats Vivien's pain as an inconvenience rather than a real injury. This teaches an important educational message. Family loyalty should never mean accepting harm. Many people are taught that family must always come first, but this story reminds us that family love without respect becomes emotional control. Vivien's relatives are not acting out of love. They are protecting money, reputation, and power. When her father threatens to cut her off financially, he reveals that his support was conditional on obedience. This is a powerful lesson for viewers who may feel triggered by family expectations. Love should not require silence. A healthy family does not ask someone to endure betrayal for the benefit of a business deal. Vivien's decision to block Cassidy, confront her father, and reject the merger shows that setting boundaries with family can be necessary. It may feel cruel or frightening, but sometimes distance is the only way to protect your emotional health. The story teaches that blood relations do not excuse manipulation. Real family should value your dignity more than their convenience. If someone uses guilt, money, or tradition to force you into a harmful situation, you have the right to step away. Vivienne's journey reminds us that choosing yourself does not mean you are selfish. It means you finally understand your worth.